this for years, and they never explained any of this,
No.
and we just went along with them.
Yeah. The other thing that, the other problem is existing.
Yeah,
That's.
yeah.
Paper. How to get out of it.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
How you doing?
Right.
Oh, no
Sorry,
problem.
I'm a little late.
We can talk about it tomorrow. Yeah. it's-
Honestly, just call me or text me.
Like I said.
All right.
If it takes me an
No problem.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good. How are you?
Right.
Hi.
Hello.
Far away.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But I asked a few people, it is portable.
Anybody good? Anybody good?
Oh, yeah, they were good. They were good. That will at least half a dozen real good.
Washington Trust, were they good? Are they?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. There were a lot of good
Yeah.
proposals, but you gotta break it all
Yeah,
down.
right.
They told, Al Costa, I said, I'll have it to you by Friday, but I wanna go through everything again.
Yeah. And then he could summarize it and then they can give it to the planning board. Yeah, good. I'm not planning board, but yeah, purchasing board.
But you should look at that oil.
Yeah,
To
all right.
see when we can get out of it.
All right.
If we've made, I think it pays a dividend now. I think
Yeah.
it's had stopped for a while. I'm
Right.
not sure, so.
Huh.
We should look at it, fine,
I
figure
was
it out.
talking to one of my.
Unbelievable.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a small percentage,
Yeah.
but still, it's a lot of money,
It's
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
how
Oh, there's another one.
it's really like no oversight of these.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, I'm not for putting that in there unless somebody asks for it.
Yeah,
We ask for it as well.
yeah, right, right.
Honestly, I'm.
But
the worst
I'm
with
not for
names.
because
Oh. Because-
it's probably a big commission going in, which they probably didn't disclose.
Right,
It's a hefty fee
Right.
every year, which
Every
they
year.
probably didn't disclose.
right,
It's been that
Right.
way.
Because I said to them, you're disclosing these fees, but how about these other,
Yeah.
fees?
exactly,
These other fees are very
Right.
expensive.
right.
I had that problem on a board I'm on. I had that problem. They've had hedge funds for 10
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
So I say to them, Bank America, I said,
Next
I
time.
ask you a question.
Tell me some jokes.
The fees in these hedge funds are 3% a year. We've
yeah.
had them 10 years.
Right,
It's 30%.
right,
We've hardly made any money.
right,
Who's making the money? here?
exactly.
Well, Steve, let me tell you, our firm feels like they have a place and
I'm good.
so is the performance.
Yep,
There's a place after 10 years.
right.
Has to be something, right?
There's a fence there.
Unbelievable.
There's no.
It's amazing to me.
So all that stuff. But anyway,
Now we gotta deal with all
it was
this.
interesting meetings. It was interesting.
We gotta deal with all this nonsense.
He is too cute.
Oh, of
We
course.
got a lot of baggage on.
Oh,
here,
yeah, of course, of course.
You know?
But you see the problem that that size.
Yeah.
Where is?
Right, right. Snowball keeps rolling.
In a word.
Do you hear from anyone what they want to do?
It's a shame.
Ah,
I have.
Do they like
feel
indicate that
bad.
to you usually or not really? Okay, we keep it. Keep it
Generally-
close to the
Good to
vest.
yourself?
Generally.
Good to see you.
What I tell them as far as.
But I would-
Yeah, yeah.
and I work for Buddy.
Yeah.
Opinion on that.
It shouldn't be
Found
because
4 cases in the
I mean,
entire state. of
all you're gonna
Rhode
do
Island.
is submit whatever additional
yeah.
evidence
What do they say?
they have.
They are-
And then what I would do is close the public.
It's
hearing,
more just like other, like
And
totally
then,
other stuff.
and then have
Not
them
about really any.
the next
potential
time, but reserve
But I did talk to
judgment,
my friend, he's
render
like,
a decision at the next
financial
meeting, so they can
change.
put it all together.
I think there's not really rulings either way as like what that means, but I think they could, find that. On appeal, maybe a different
What's
story,
that?
but I think they could find.
Steve was trying to get definitions of like existing structure.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Structure.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, you got it,
Right.
yeah.
You know,
right.
like the statute has some
But master
definitions,
plan
as you
doesn't
know, but
require it.
it's not really of anything that like helps us, like
Yeah,
nothing that we need the
Yeah.
definition of.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they
agree.
wanna do. I-
Right. Did you go
I think-
look at the place?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Worst case, create some case law, worst case,
yeah.
but at least they can try. I mean, I think this guy, if this guy just went,
It'll never work.
oh, adaptive reuse,
Got a nice
would be a
residence.
different position.
Yeah.
Very nice neighborhood.
Yeah,
Cost them shit ton of money, probably to knock the building down.
You can't-
right. He tried to reach out, but nobody responded.
You think it's
There's a better plan. It's less units. It knocks the building down.
It might behoove him to do that,
It's a better plan.
but then no density bonus. I think that's what he wants, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this oil. What's that?
The problem.
Oh, that's not on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Well,
For next week, you're saying? For next month?
Yeah, so,
It's not on for next month anymore?
no,
Oh,
they got massive.
We're allowed to.
They came in last year.
No. No,
No.
but what he did do is he agreed to go down to one bedroom unit.
Yep,
They didn't
But
get their
you
request.
get rid of 30 or 40 bedrooms.
Here's it opened, then they got denied the request to combine, so. It's kind of weird.
I think he tried, but nobody, yeah,
Well, I guess you couldn't propose it before.
yeah, but the council didn't want to, the
So-
council's not interested. Like,
Oh,
you
the
should be-
council.
They're coming back.
You know,
with
yeah.
an applications they don't need.
Bottom line is something's going there, no matter
all
what.
right.
If he.
So
if he
they're asking
doesn't have
variance
just
on that.
one
How you doing, Dave? Right.
unit,
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's not, that's not how that works.
So they just said they're.
Well-
Something that works.
Okay, so then never.
Right, exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
all right, well then sounds like next month is just gonna be this and then.
But he's legally
Next month is
entitled.
in 5 years. If this-
How are you?
Oh,
I haven't been.
One of the things-
What's that feeling?
Short night tonight.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I know, after last time.
How long is it gonna,
I don't know. It takes about a year. Hello there, Dave. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Dave, how are you?
Good.
But it's been a year. It's been more than a year.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think we're having another one?
Dave, I was thinking that
That was crazy awesome.
maybe do
That's not
that
you.
for the rest of the evidence sign, because I'm gonna have.
Usually it's
to
less than an hour. All right.
And then we'll
But when
close
it's
the
long,
public
it's long.
hearing
Yeah, yeah.
and render a decision at
I don't
that.
How are you on this fine day?
Trying to think about
We'll see whenever we go for it.
findings, all of that stuff. You don't wanna be making findings.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
On the spot.
Thinks is it?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, all right.
I told my wife, see, I'm not.
Yeah.
It was my fiance's birthday.
Yeah, it's fine.
Last month.
So this
It
one's-
was my first one, so I said, listen, I gotta go. And he's like, oh, we'll just put it dinner late. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever time it was, I don't even know.
But
As soon as we get out, like, yeah. He's like, do you want dinner still? I'm like, no, what do I do?
Yeah, yeah, right.
I know. Sorry, this should, actually should be.
How's your son doing? All right, getting big, I assume?
It's getting big fast, too fast.
Yeah.
Ridiculous how fast it happens.
Yeah, I know, time goes by. too.
Yeah, every day or two I come home, and it's like, he's got a new skill that he's showing off.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You want Mox?
How's the site? How's the site visit?
Warren, I got a question for you after. I have a large. From an old sliding glass door. I have.
Do we get paid from us?
No, sorry.
I have a screen of a previous slide screen. Totally tapped. Do you want it?
Not really.
I was gonna come on the road, but it's.
I'll, you know, I'll send it to Salvage Idler.
You bet, how's Nancy, all right?
Good. We babysat for the first time the other night
Oh, nice.
and, so the kids could go to Foxwoods for a comedy show or something. So we had the baby overnight.
All right.
It was like,
That's nice.
you don't know what it's like to get away from the kids doing it. Well, I think they enjoyed it as much as they enjoyed getting away from it.
Babysitting
We did it the other night.
your grandkids? That's nice.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
Well, 18 years old. And this couple, they just got married.
Is that right?
Baby.
How old was the baby now? Almost
So cute.
9 months? Yeah. Okay.
That's fun.
That is fun.
I think I would. With one. Boy.
Wish we could turn the air conditioning down. Cold here.
Oh, God, this is-
Got that? The control box. Eighty-two kilos.
How are you, Mr. Dave? You did a very nice job last week.
Yeah, he always does.
I was at municipal court, so how did you?
Transcript.
I had my head facing. Very well. Also, the. Oh, my
Dave, did you get my email? Yeah, we'll do this one. For the fence, yeah, it's just a recommendation. So he has a fence there already.
I thought it was. It wouldn't be a bad.
Yeah.
I got a survey where I wanted to put my fence was at the property. Nope,
So cute.
it was not.
It's tough to make someone do a survey though.
He looks like
Oh,
a.
you can ask him.
Doesn't he?
That's confirmed.
Yeah, no, he does.
We generally tell people putting up a fence without a survey is at your own risk.
So cute. That's fun.
Well, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, we don't require it though, so
What's that?
we don't require it for a fence. Yeah,
I bet.
yeah.
I'm just
Good
wondering.
for her. She has the energy. I don't know how she does.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it can be part of the recommendation to the zoning board. Yeah, well,
You're like, okay, all right, boss.
You guys.
yeah.
Long time no see. And we have. Bro, we have no meeting minutes. No meeting minutes.
We got them earlier today, so I figured it's too late to send them out. Everyone read them.
He supposedly went to
We'll just do it.
a small one bedroom unit. Bedrooms.
Yeah.
But not the number. Not the number of units.
Right.
Who's missing?
He's got like a. He's got 4 units. Like this, the low there.
Was it here last month, was it? He wasn't here last month.
No.
Is he gone?
I don't know.
And if these people want to get up again to speak, Dave, look, if you spoke the last time, please confine your comments to the existing, like the new additional evidence. So if they're gonna get up and repeat themselves, we'll be here till midnight. Yes.
Brent, is Gary coming?
He said he was coming. He's been known to walk in a few minutes late.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of a drive to get here.
That he knows.
Where's you work? Attleboro.
Attleboro, yeah.
But
You can start whenever you.
yeah. All right. Good evening, everybody. Can everybody in the gallery hear me? Want to test that these microphones are on. It seems like they are. Thank you for attending the Town of North Providence Planning Board. We're located at 2000 Smith Street, North Providence, Rhode Island. Will you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with freedom and justice. We're off mute on YouTube.
Okay, first on tonight's agenda is the approval of meeting minutes from our hearing on May 14th and May 21st. I just been made aware that the meeting minutes have been issued just recently earlier today. I myself have not had enough time to review the meeting minutes and don't feel comfortable on making a decision to approve or disapprove. I'll just poll the board to see if my fellow board members feel the same way I do. Lou, do you feel comfortable or not
I
comfortable?
haven't had an opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
No,
All right, so that meeting agenda item will be taken care of our next hearing. Do we have to vote on that? No. We have two projects being heard tonight. Oh, no, actually, we're gonna take a roll call of attendees. We can start to my right,
Lou DeLucchio,
Warren Richatelli,
David Parenti,
Gary Aeration.
Steve Patassi.
Anthony Galone, Town Solicitor.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum tonight. So we're gonna arrange the sequence of how we're gonna hear the projects tonight. So first on the agenda will be 9 Barry Court, Assessors Plat 19, Lot 814, Zone Residential General. Applicant is Boris Nicholas of 9 Barry Court, North Providence. The description for the board tonight is a recommendation to the zoning board regarding a request for a 2-foot fence height variance under section 311D screening and fencing to install an 8-foot fence spanning 151.5 feet along the rear property line. Is the applicant present in this room?
Mr. Chair, before we get started with this, if you wouldn't mind just making the announcement about the Take 5 withdrawing their application.
Was that advertised?
It was.
It was, okay. It just didn't show up on the agenda. So if anybody is here for the Take 5 project located on Mineral Spring Avenue, forgive me, I don't know the exact address.
It was advertised as 0 Malcolm Street / 0 Mineral Spring.
Okay, so that project is not being heard tonight. So if you are here for that particular project, that project will not be heard. Thanks for a reminder, Brent. Okay, back to 9 Barry Court. The applicant, please stand up, state your name and address so for the public record.
My name is Boris Knocklis. This is 9 Barry Court, Providence. Nakhlis.
Okay, can you describe to the board a little bit about what you're proposing?
Sure. So back of my property faces tennis court. There's an existing piece of fencing that's 6 feet tall. And that I want to replace with an 8-foot tall fencing. There's another piece of fencing that's another section that I want to put an 8-foot piece of fence in there too.
Okay, and your property borders, I believe, Stephen Only Park?
Yes.
Is that correct? And is the existing 6-foot fence on your property? Do you know? It is?
Yep.
Okay. Have you had a property boundary survey of your property done?
The fence is existing. There's existing property lines visible. This permit that was put in place in 2010, which is 15 years ago, to put a shed where the shed is existent, so that property line's been in place for at least 15 years. Additionally, that previous owner was in litigation with the property owner that's a church that owns the property right in the back of me. And then there was a litigation around the property line, so they established the property line through that too.
Okay, but you don't have a survey of your property. You're establishing your property line based off of existing elements that are
Yep.
need
It's
to be on
been
your
there
property.
for about 15 years, so I think that's probably Good enough, right?
So, just, my own experience, I recently put up a fence on my property and, lived there for maybe probably about 45 years and I knew exactly where my property line was and, decided that it would be, a wise investment just to have my property surveyed and get a boundary survey. And believe it or not, where I wanted to put my fence, where I thought my property line was, it was not. It was actually skewed. So given the fact that your property borders, town property, I would strongly recommend for you as a homeowner to, get your property surveyed, not only because you're putting up a fence, but it may come in handy down the road.
Yeah,
my
I
co-
appreciate
Yep.
the suggestion. I also believe that there's a certain rule around if the property if it's in existence, it's been clearly defined as that and has been used as that for a number of years, it just becomes that as well.
It
I'll
just
look into it,
becomes
though.
what? I'm sorry?
If the property line has been established and it's been in place and nobody has disputed it over X amount of time, I believe that becomes a property line too. But I will look into all of that.
Yeah.
That's adverse possession, that's not necessarily the case.
In order to establish a property line through adverse possession, you need to get a judgment Superior Court
Okay.
to actually establish the line.
I will look into that.
Do any of my board members have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Gary.
Mr. Nicholas, all this time that you've had that 6-foot fence, have you ever had to maintain the other side of it?
No, I just bought a house about 3-4 years ago.
So my question is, if you're gonna put the 8-foot fence right on the property line, and you need to maintain the other side for whatever reason, how would you do that if it's right on the property line without encroaching on public property?
I would put an access to the other side and I would put it on my side of the property, and provide enough access to it that I can still walk on my.
Provide
property.
what, I'm sorry?
I would put a fence on my property
Yeah,
with a space for me to walk on the other side and take care of the other side.
so
of the
that, I
property.
guess that's why I was asking, I thought you said you're gonna put it right on the property line, so you're gonna offset it a couple of feet?
Right, it would be offset by.
Okay, that
amount of
doesn't
space
show
that-
this on the plan, that's what I was asking, so.
That makes sense.
So if the board were to approve it,
Yep.
you would, as for the record, you would put it a couple of feet off the property line.
Yeah, I would put it, enough
Yeah.
space for me to walk behind it to take care of it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is that it, Gary?
Yeah, thank you.
Lou, I believe you had a question.
Yes, what material will the fence be made of?
I haven't gotten to that point yet, but probably would.
Wood?
Yeah.
Steve, Warren, any questions from you guys?
No.
I grew up with no fences.
I'm sorry?
I grew up with no fences. And where I'm living now, when 50 years ago, we had no fences there. And it became a communal play yard for everybody. When we were having a big party, we'd let everybody know. We'd have football games back there, baseball games. When we got married, everybody went to our wedding and we had to hire the police to watch over the houses just in case. Now it's all fences. I got 6-foot fence behind me. I hate it. The neighbors there hate it. I'm not too keen on fences, but in some cases you need it. 8 foot, the subdivision regulations say 6 feet. 8 foot, is that overkill?
So the problem is back of my property just takes, dips a little bit. The court is higher up. So that provides a perfect view of my backyard. Also, I'm getting tennis balls flying into my backyard. I don't really want my kids outside. When I bought the house, the court was a lot smaller. So that was not a problem. Now the court is a lot bigger. It's more foot traffic. The balls are flying in. There's in the back of a court, there was a fence put in. And then there's a direct gate in the back of a court. And I put all of that in like application. So it encourages foot traffic. People are constantly in my yard. There's been trespassing. There's been a fire in my backyard. So it just creates a lot of nuisance for me and I can't, when I bought my house, this was not a problem. Now it is a problem.
The abutting property,
I'm sorry?
the abutting property on either side, are there any fences on that same line?
Yes.
How high are they, 6 feet or 8 feet?
The land, it just goes up. So just naturally the 6 feet, but they're a lot higher up, just because of just the way the land is.
Just for clarification, the applicant determined that 8-foot fence would be preferred over the regulated 6-foot fence for privacy reasons and also to help prevent tennis balls from entering your yard. That's how you came to that conclusion?
Yes, I want to prevent trespassers. I want to
Yep.
prevent people, tennis balls flying around. I have 2 small children. I mean, actually 3 children. I don't want anything to happen to my kids. And I want to discourage people from going through my property to either retrieve balls or to loiter around them or to think it's okay to do that.
Sure.
I do not want people looking into my property. So I want to enjoy my house as I intended to when I bought it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from my fellow board members on this application? So this is so what we have to discuss and determine is whether or not a recommendation from this board can be made to the zoning board, who will inevitably approve or deny the application's request for the height variance. I don't need to open up a public hearing. Okay. So I've heard a couple of good suggestions by the applicant. I do see reason for your fence. I thought Gary and Lou and Warren asked very good questions for the applicant regarding the location of the fence being offset from the rear property line. I myself, just having gone through this exercise recently, do find extreme value in having the property surveyed prior to building anything. What you know is what you know until it becomes something that you don't know. Will any of my fellow board members entertain making a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair,
So moved.
to grant the variance,
We're not granting, we're recommending.
to recommend, okay,
Okay,
make a motion that we recommend to the zoning board of appeals that they grant the variance.
okay. Do you have any, based on the applicant's record that the fence will be located off of his property line?
So I thought you do that, but if it's seconded, then we could discuss the conditions. So should I do that right now? So I make a motion.
Yeah.
That the planning board make a favorable recommendation that to the Board of Appeals to grant the 2-foot variance for the fence as shown on the plan, provided that it's offset 2 feet off the property line.
Second.
Okay, the motion is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? I'm hearing none. You have a favorable recommendation. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Next project we are going to hear is the address 114 Baird Avenue, plat 24A, lot 110, zoned residential limited 10. The applicant is Patriot Builders of 14010 Road, Exeter, Rhode Island. The description is a public hearing which was continued from February 12th and again on May 22nd, 2005. The public hearing is open. The applicant is seeking master plan review for an adaptive reuse development converting the existing two structures into 48 residential units, meeting the maximum number of units per acre permitted by right for an adaptive reuse project under section 203 district use regulations of the zoning ordinance. Is the applicant present here tonight? All right. Take your time. $25 a year? Yeah, make it a 25, please. Sorry, good catch. 2005. Um, While the applicant is getting ready for his presentation, I do want to acknowledge Mark Andriozzi has joined the meeting. He was present for the vote for 9 Barry Court.
Evening, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, good evening. Can you state your name for the record?
Jack McGreen for the applicant. As you stated, this hearing is a continuance from the May 14th meeting of my client's application for master plan review for an adaptive reuse development, converting 2 existing buildings located at 114 Beard Avenue. Since the last meeting, we've submitted a revised set of plans. I assume you all have that in your packet. Reducing the size of the larger building so that it would only contain single bedroom units. So there are no 2-bedroom units. We shrunk it down, and you can see that in the plan. And we have the plans with us to go over with you. I'll have Adam come up and walk you through those plans. And then Tim will come up and also walk you through the site plan. We did revise the name on the project on the elevation plans to Riverside Apartments. Because of the board's concerns as to whether the units are going to be sold or rented. As of right now, the applicant tends to rent the property. As for the objection raised by Attorney DeSisto on behalf of the North Providence Town Council, stating that the board should have gotten a letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing along with the pro forma, excuse me, along with the pro forma on financials. I was able to do some research and contacted Amy Renone, who's the Director of Government Relations at Rhode Island Housing. And she confirmed my suspicion that a letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing is not required and will not be given by Rhode Island Housing for an adaptive reuse project. I do have a letter from Rhode Island Housing confirming that fact. And I'd just like to submit that. I just got it today, otherwise I would have sent it earlier.
Thank you.
Briefly read the letter into the record for the purposes of everybody in the audience.
Thank you.
Dear Mr. McGreen, I am writing response to your question regarding the applicability of the letter of eligibility, LOE, to an adaptive reuse development under our IGL 4255. Rhode Island Housing is responsible for writing LOEs for proposed developments utilizing the Low and Moderate Income Housing Act comprehensive permit process, which this is not. The low and she cites the statute. The Low and Moderate Income Housing Act describes the requirements that developers provide an LOE at the preliminary plan review stage of filing a comprehensive permit application. And then she cites the statute. I am not aware of any requirement for an LOE associated with adaptive reuse projects. You can access the statutory requirements for an adaptive reuse, which we've already gone over last meeting. So I think that shuts the door on the need for me to get an LOE.
Thank you, Mr. McGreen. We'll accept this letter for the record.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask that the letter be signed? Letter's not signed.
Jack, can you get the letter signed, please?
This letter's not signed.
She didn't sign the letter?
I'm sorry?
She emailed it to me, so if you need it signed, I'll get it signed.
I absolutely want a signed letter.
Okay, not a problem. Mike,
I think the mics are on. I think we'll just do a better job speaking into them. Thank you. Chuck, can you hear us in the back? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
but nevertheless, my client has engaged the services of, the Community Housing Land Trust of Rhode Island, who has agreed to act as our monitoring agent for Riverside Apartments. I have that letter that I also like to submit. This one is signed. Apologize for that. Again, for the record, I just quickly read that letter into the record. To whom it may concern, please accept the letter as confirmation that Mr. John McGreen, on behalf of Patriot Builders Incorporated, has been in contact with the Community Housing Land Trust of Rhode Island with regards to the monitoring of the 10 affordable rental units that will be developed in conjunction with an adaptive reuse project known as Riverside Apartments, proposed at 114 Beard Avenue, North Providence. Once this development be approved by the North Providence Planning Board, the Community Housing Land Trust of Rhode Island will execute a formalized monitoring agreement with the developer to serve as the monitoring agent for the newly created affordable units. Our role will be to ensure the development's initial and ongoing compliance with Rhode Island's Low and Moderate Income Housing Act, enabling the town of North Providence to receive the appropriate credit towards the state's 10% affordability requirement. For the proposed rental units, the monitoring scope of work will entail the setting of the maximum monthly rental rate based on the town approval AMI target, screening of prospective tenants to determine initial eligibility, working with the appropriate parties to successfully bring the affordable units online, as well as an ongoing annual eligibility of its place tenants. The Community Housing Land Development of Rhode Island, RI, will monitor the development for compliance for the duration of the deed restricted period, including any resales of the developments. I should add, probably should that occur, because right now, as I stated, we're going to be leasing these units. CHLTRI will also coordinate with Rhode Island housing staff to provide the appropriate information and documentation to ensure that the LMIH homes created as part of this development are included in the LMIH inventory chart and submit the required annual reports to the appropriate state authority. Then she goes on to say, if you have any questions, you can reach her at that phone number. So I'd like to submit that as part of the record.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Pertaining to the Community Housing Land Trust of Rhode Island letter?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So I don't know if I should direct this to Mr. McGreen or perhaps to,
Speak into the mic, Gary.
I don't know if I should direct this to Mr. McGreen or to the town planner, but the third full paragraph says, for the proposed rental units, the monitoring scope of work will entail the setting of the maximum monthly rental rate based on the town-approved AMI target. So I want to talk about the AMI target. So maybe I can ask you, Brent, on whose authority, who in the town, the CD director, or who would approve that? For example, is it going to be 80% AMI, 70% AMI?
So we use the Rhode Island Housing Standard. So I'm not sure who approves it. I don't approve it. So it's someone other than myself, but
So we're looking at, again, an AMI, but what, at 80%?
I believe it's 8%, yeah.
80%.
Mhm.
All right.
That's my understanding. It's 80%.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So,
Okay.
and like I stated, just not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to beat the dead horse. Even though in the letter from Rhode Island Housing, it states that we didn't need a letter of Rhode Island Housing letter, a letter from them. If you look at that statute, I took a look at the statute that she does issue the letters. Even in that, it states that that letter would be due at preliminary, not at master plan. It's right in the statute. Read that statute. Copy of it. Again, she was referring to the requirement of the letters of eligibility that fall under 4553-4, which this does not. But if you go to that section, it says submission requirements, preliminary plan review. Applications for a preliminary plan review under this chapter shall include a letter of eligibility issued by the Rhode Island Housing. So that letter, if it was needed, which it's not, would have been due at preliminary, not at master plan. At this point in time, I think I'm gonna bring up Tim first, just to walk you through the site plan with the changes that were made.
Before that, can I just, while you're up there, Jack, for any of the planning board members to ask any specific questions regarding the letters that are just been
Sure.
proposed to enter into the record?
So I guess maybe not a question, but just a comment. While I understand the statute says that it's compulsory at the preliminary plan.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry, I know, what, I understand that the statute says that the LOE is compulsory at the preliminary plan stage. I think as members of the board, nothing says that you can't submit that at the master plan. So we had requested, but I understand the statute. There's nothing wrong with providing additional information. It doesn't hurt. So I just want to, I understand the statute, but there's nothing wrong with the board asking for that information. But I'm acceptable, I'm amenable to this information at this time.
Right, and quite frankly, it didn't cost us any extra money to get the letter, so honestly, it wasn't a big deal, but you know, I did educate myself, and quite frankly, I think I educated Attorney DeSpirito that he was referring to the statute that is not applicable to this application. Quite frankly, I don't know why it's not, you know, other than the fact that you need a pro forma, because they determine under the other statute whether or not it's feasible to have 25% or 30% or 35%. In this instance, there's no wiggle room. We're entitled to the afford the 20% based on 20%. So there's no wiggle room as to whether or not they can say you have it or you don't have it. We're entitled to it by right under the statute. That's the difference. That's why there's no need for pro forma, which Rhode Island Housing does require to make that determination.
Do any other board members have any questions for the applicant regarding the two letters just submitted to us? All right, thank you. Mr. McGreen, thank you very much for your due diligence and research on that for us.
Okay, and Tim, you want to come up here and just walk me through the revised plan and show the changes that were made?
Yes, good evening. For the record, Timothy Behan, professional engineer with the firm Commonwealth Engineers and Consultants, Inc., Providence, Rhode Island. I'll just hold it. All right, this is the revised site plan. There's not many changes to the actual drawings for the site plan. What's happened since the previous submission to this submission is the building got a little smaller in size. As you can see, the original building went all the way up there. See this part here? This has been taken out of the project, and this part over here has been taken out of the project. So the building size shrunk, and the bedroom count also shrunk. Originally, we had 48 units with 73 bedrooms. The current plan has 48 units, which is the same, but we dropped it to 48 bedrooms. So they're all single bedroom units. Other than the building getting smaller, the site plan is the same. The parking's the same. We had 67 spaces before. We have 67 now. We did not change the parking configuration. So site plan wise, there's not a lot of changes. We updated all the tables, the amount of impervious, et cetera, things like that. But the only change here are those two items.
I believe there's also a change with the garbage location as well.
This was shown on the last plan.
Was it? All right.
Okay, yeah.
And maybe I was thinking of the iteration before, yeah.
The first meeting we had the garbage down here, but we picked up on that, that's technically the flood zone, so we had to move it outside the flood zone.
Tim, I got a couple of, I'm sorry. Are you all set presenting
Yes,
the
yes,
changes?
that's it.
Okay, a couple of questions for you regarding the changes and specifically the reduction in the existing building footprint. Can you state what the existing building footprint, what the square footage approximately is
Currently,
currently? And by existing building, I do mean the larger building on the property.
let's see. Building one is, the big building is 13,002 square feet. And building two, the smaller one, is 1,582 feet now, currently proposed.
What's the existing footprint, the existing square footage of
The
the larger
existing,
building? Before the proposed
Dave,
demolition.
I did the calculation and so existing is 16,684. Proposed is
Yeah, he's got it on his plan.
13,002.
Because you're not,
go to the previous set.
Yep.
Has the numbers. Building one was 17,140,
okay. And now it is,
13,002 square feet.
okay. Second question for you regarding the footprint when compared to the architectural drawings. It appears that the architectural drawings have what is noted as a courtyard within what appears to be the existing footprint of the building. And I cannot see that courtyard represented on your site plan. Can you or the applicant speak to what the footprint of the proposed larger building will be? Is it per the civil drawings or is it per the architectural drawings? Because there is a discrepancy between the two.
Good evening. Adam Beauregard, licensed architect from ZDS Architecture. Sure. B as in boy, EAUREGARD. There's a small discrepancy between the architecture and the civil drawings, but the courtyard, it's an open courtyard. It's enclosed within 3 sides, but then on the lower level, it is fully enclosed, and it's roughly, I don't have the square footage, but it's 15 by over 25 feet.
Did you say on the lower level it's enclosed? It looks like on the lower level it's still a courtyard.
Yeah, so on the first level, which is the low level.
Yep.
There's a retaining wall. We're maintaining that because of the grade difference.
Mhm.
And then if you're looking at the plan, the left, west, north and east are all like the perimeter of the building.
Okay, so the intention
It's a little, yeah.
for the proposed footprint of the larger building is the architectural plan.
That's correct, and slightly smaller.
Okay. So Tim, it just sounds like your plans need to be updated and it sounds like the proposed square footage of the building footprint on your plans needs to get reduced by that area of courtyard.
We'll take a look at that. If that qualifies as a reduction, then we'll reduce it, definitely.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just gonna walk you through the presentation very quickly. Yes, so yes, I'm very light speaker. We'll start on the second page, quickly going through the site plan. So on the right is a diagram discussing the elevation changes. So in the rear of the lot is the parking lot, and that's at 85 elevation. And the current elevation of the building is just below 88.8, so we need to raise that up about a foot. So we have a ramp and stairs that go up about 4'4" to the first level. Then we have to raise the second level because it's not at street level. And so because of that, our building is just getting a little bit taller. It's not taller than last time. It's roughly 33.9 feet tall. So moving on to the rendering on the third page. Just showing an updated rendering with the reduced footprint. There's stacked stone in the front of the building, lap siding, trim band around the second level. This is to reduce the massing of the building to make it seem smaller to the residential neighborhood. We have residential windows, and then there's two types of roofs. There's a gable roof with board and batten in the upper area and a hip roof to the right. Moving to the fifth page is the lower level. This is just clearly showing the access from the parking lot in the top right. So there's a ramp and stairs leading up to the 89.8 first level elevation. There's about 19 units here. Again, these are all one beds, some studios and one bed pluses. Moving up to the next level, there's 23 units. We're stacking units wherever possible. There's an access off of the main street, Bayard Street, so that we have a presence on the main street. Here you can just see the outline of the building with like the opening for the courtyard. And then the elevations on page 7. The west elevation is off of Baird Street, and it shows to the right and left the drop, so there's a retaining wall that's existing. And then the south elevation showing the grade drop from Baird Street down to the parking lot. The materials are consistent around the building except for the stone that's only on Baird Ave. And I can go through the second building if you need, but it's roughly the same thing.
Okay, thank you. Couple of questions for you, and then regarding the architectural plans. If I'm reading the plans correctly, you indicate walls in two manners. One manner is two lines that are pochade gray. The other manner is just two lines that are pochade white. Can you clarify for the board what the difference between those two ways of depicting walls is?
I'd be happy to. The pochade grade walls are existing. It's mainly the perimeter walls and some of the interior walls. You'll see that bisector, they're existing firewalls made of CMU, and the white walls are new proposed walls, mainly corridor walls and demising walls.
Okay, on the, thank you for that. So gray is existing and white are new walls.
That's correct.
Perfect. On the second floor level, I see an existing gray wall. Excuse me. Going through the middle of 4 of the single bedroom units that are approximately 415 feet or so. It actually looks like that wall creates two rooms.
I apologize. That's a discrepancy, an issue on our part. There should be a dashed line showing an opening between them. Once we go into preliminary design and lay out the units, we'll decide where that opening would be. We can't have too large of an opening just because we want the existing wall to remain, since it's supporting the structure.
And that wall's supporting what structure?
The roof above.
The roof above?
It's basically, once we have a structural engineer on board, we'll, and some light demo work to see the makeup of the building, we'll understand what walls would be able to safely come down or if they need to be remain.
Okay, couple other questions for you, sir, while you're still there. The I understand the first floor, is, the existing first floor is a slab on grade, and the elevation is at an elevation of such that, is lower than allowable for residential for the, compared to the existing floodplain.
That's correct.
So the concept here is to build a new floor.
That's correct.
Okay.
Most likely piers and then wood joists for the wall, for the floor structure.
Okay. And the second floor, as you show it, the second level, is there a, can you clarify, is there an existing second floor in the building now?
There's an existing second level only for the front portion, which is that skinny band. So the outside wall, which is planned south, and that wall that you were just talking about that cuts through the units.
Okay.
I believe that's the only area that has, that's the second level. Everywhere else, it's much taller, but not tall enough for us to have two levels without putting a new floor and roof.
Okay, so in concept, the footprint of the building, when we look at the second floor plan, a good majority of that second floor plan consists of a brand new floor inside the building shell, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And from your general observations, can you describe the structure of the building, the existing building?
Sure. It's a warehouse made of CMU load-bearing walls on the perimeter. There are walls that are shown in plan that it's basically a bunch of different buildings that have been added on to each other over time. That mainly why we're demoing two portions, because there were smaller buildings that were just added. Other than that, it's just a slab on grade for the inside, and there's a older roof above.
Okay. At this point, has there been a structural engineer to take a look at the existing structure to deem feasibility, whether or not the existing structure can structurally support the new residential use and added loads to the building?
That's correct. We've contracted with a structural engineer that we've worked with closely, who has done preliminary review. We've walked the site together. We've discussed how we'd be able to raise the first floor and how we'd be building the second level. But he has not, just like us, we have not drawn anything past this conceptual design, and he has not started drawing anything.
Has he provided you or the applicant with a report based on his findings?
No,
Okay,
not written, not formal.
okay. Do you know whether or not the structural engineer deemed the existing structure, which consists of majority load-bearing walls, can be reused to support the new floor structure that is being proposed for the building? Or will the new
Sorry, are you
floors,
asking, would he be able to, or has he?
has he?
We've discussed it. It seems very likely that he'd be able to reuse the majority of the walls
To
to
support-
support a second level.
Okay.
And roof. I will just state, because of the amount of openings that we're putting into the walls and the openings that are existing, there'll be a lot of mix match. So we'll know more once construction starts and once we do some flight demo to see really what's behind everything.
Okay. And a question came up from the board a few times is regarding the architectural floor plan, where some of the units in the larger building didn't seem to have access to natural daylight. And we were very curious about about that design approach and.
I'd be happy to
and if it's
elaborate on that.
allowable per the.
So on the first level floor plans, and I believe in some of the second levels, there's a note indicating how we're getting daylight into the bedrooms. So some of the units only have 1 or 2 windows that are primarily for the living room. And so it would be what we consider a buried bedroom. A buried bedroom. And so to get light access, we would either have an opening in the wall or a transom window of some sort. There is 1 unit that's directly in the center of the building, just because of the amount of units that we need pro forma wise, that we were asked to keep. And so there is a section in the code, that the building code, that allows for artificial light. So basically can lights or electrical lights to suffice for daylight. It's not something that we typically like to do, that my firm or I personally would want to do. But we do know that it's an option and we try our best not to do it.
Thank you for answering that. It was a question that I think that was interesting to all of us on the board.
Yeah.
Do you have any more presentation on the
Thank you.
new evidence? Thank you.
No, I think that concludes our presentation, subject to any additional questions that the board may have.
Yep,
I would like, no, I'm not gonna say it.
thank you. Okay, I'll open up questions from my fellow board members for the applicant on the revisions that we are presented here tonight, civil site and architectural. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a question for the architect? So at the last meeting, the product being proposed to the board was a build out of the existing footprint of the building.
That's correct.
Okay. It wasn't until members of the board, I think it was Warren and those, let's say, were in opposition, questioned the integrity, the structural integrity of the building. That unless that questioning came up, the proposal before the board was a build out of the existing footprint. So I guess there was enough questioning being had that the proponents team agreed to say, hey, let's go kick the tires on that building. That was just last month. So this wasn't like a 6-month exercise we went through. So here we are a month later saying, oh geez, by the way, yeah, some sections of this building have to come down. So, well, I didn't ask the question yet. We're just kind of setting the
I can
stage.
respond to what
Okay.
you said when you're finished.
Yeah, well, I'd actually like to hear it from the architect if that's okay as
He's
well.
not familiar with that, the answer. You're asking why we reduced it, and you're suggesting that it was because of a architectural issue or a.
Okay, well, I would think the architect would know the structural integrity of the building. So, all right, so let me ask the question first. So I just wanted to set the stage. So this was about a month ago. And until that question, that inquiry came up and kind of took some traction, that it was taken seriously and said, okay, hey, we'll come back to you. And it's only been a month. Now we're looking at a smaller footprint. So fine, you're reducing it is what it is. I want to understand what the thought process was to say in mid-May, I think this building is of sound body, if you may. It could be fit out for 48 units that included a distribution of additional with 2-bedroom units. Now here we are a month later saying, no, you're right. We kicked the tires on it. Now the building's smaller, because which then leads me to ask, okay, is this a sufficient, the building footprint that you're proposing before the board, is that of sufficient structural integrity? So my first question then, so I don't extend this with too many questions, is I'd like to understand what the thought process was from the structural engineer from a month ago to say, hey, you know what, those sections of the building have to come down. What was the technical thought process behind that? Not an anecdotal response, a technical response.
Right. We're not going to be able to provide you with a technical response because at the first meeting, This is just a concept plan. There's no engineering involved. I'm going to let Mr. Cortalesso answer the question as to why I reduced it, which has nothing to do with a structural issue. But that being said, and I stated at the previous meeting, that we are not at preliminary stage. We are at master stage. And if you look at section 8, submission requirements for preliminary, not master, preliminary. Requirements for the preliminary plan and supporting materials for this phase of review shall include engineering plans depicting the proposed development project, a perimeter survey, all permits required by state and federal agencies for prior to commencement of construction, including permits related to freshwater, wetlands, coastal, flood zones, disposal systems, public water systems, and connection to state town roads. That is the step in which we will address all structural issues. But that being said, I'll let Mr. Cortalesso answer the question as to why he reduced the footprint.
Before you do,
Yeah, I was going to step in for a second. So we're not requesting that structural drawings be submitted as part of master plan. At least I am not as chair of this board. But however, I think given the adaptive reuse nature of this building and the condition of the building that is clearly visible from the street, raises questions on its ability to perform structurally and be reused as structural elements for the two new floors that are being built inside the shell of the building. The first floor is a brand new floor, and the second floor is going to be a brand new floor. So the board does have concerns that a structural engineer, like the architect had mentioned, can produce something for the board to consider of report findings, not engineered drawings, but most likely a feasibility study to be performed on the building.
That is not a requirement of a master plan. I respectfully disagree. That type of work, that expense is preliminary, not master.
so let me buttress, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So,
If I could just finish
Well, Mr. McGreen.
answering the question before you ask another
no, well,
question.
I think we digressed on this. Mr. McGreen, I don't know how many times we've sat here.
I'm sorry. I
I'm
can't-
sorry, I apologize. I'm gonna put this here. You keep lecturing us on what that requirement, and I know that, I realize that's a requirement, but we're a planning board. And you're just, for example, what I have here before me that you're considering a master plan, with all due respect, is a property line perimeter, the footprint of a building, and the layout of a parking lot. That's all you've given us, and you're saying that that's a master plan. Let me tell you something, that's not a master plan. So as the chair and other members ask for some peripheral information to try and find reasons to approve, it seems like all you do is push back and say, you can't ask for that. So we might not have that, but I think in the spirit of cooperation, to try to impress upon us why we should grant it, and we're asking for some bit of information, it almost seems like, as I said, I think at a previous meeting, it's the cost of doing business. If we're asking for some reasonable information, we're not asking, as the chair said, a stamp plan, a stamp set of engineering specifications of the walls. We're not asking for that. We're asking for reasonable information, in my humble opinion. And I will tell you, this isn't a master plan. This is a perimeter plan with a building footprint and a parking lot. And you're saying, well, that's all we're entitled. So let's say that's the case. What's wrong with us with asking for some additional information?
I think, Jack, the problem the board's having is even though a master plan is conceptual, you need to know that the concept works. And there's no,
The concept may not work if we get an engineer out there at preliminary, for example. And, my client, just so you know, is considering perhaps doing a septic system design rather than connecting to sewers. That's a possibility. Well, number one, if we go out there at preliminary and we try and design a septic system and the engineer tells us you can't put the septic system in, then the whole deal dies. So this deal is going to die if we don't have a structural engineer and structural plans coming in here saying that we want to build what we're proposing right now. This is simply conceptual. We will have structural plans. We will not be able to proceed beyond preliminary plan unless we have structural plans showing that the structure will support this thing that we're proposing here tonight.
All right, so can we go back to my other first question then?
Yeah, Armin, you can answer the question as to why you reduced the units.
No, I didn't ask why you reduced the units, because you didn't reduce the units.
I'm sorry, units.
bedrooms.
Reduce the size of the building.
Okay, so what, am I all set? Okay, what is it that you need an answer on?
The question was, let me restate it, is at the previous meeting, Mr. C, the proposal before the board was to build out or fit out 48 units in the existing footprint of the building. It wasn't until I believe Warren asked a couple of questions about the structural integrity of the building that I think from there it got a little traction and we went down this path about some concerns. And here we are a month later, because that never came up during the presentation. It was, where we're using the entire footprint of the building. I think to a certain extent, maybe I'm incorrect, but let's see what the record reflects, is I think you even spoke to the structural integrity of the building. That seems like it was in good condition. I might be wrong, but I think you did. In any event, here we are about a month later, and we're getting a proposal where 2 sections of the building are coming down. Now, whether or not that was because of a structural engineer saying those have to come down or was a decision, but until that point was raised by the board about the structural integrity of the building, it seemed like we would have been here today still looking at that had that point not been risen. So my question is, other than the fact that you're reducing the footprint of the building, I want to understand why.
I want to answer both questions for you. First one is, when I do a job, it's, can I make money or not? That's what I'm here for. When I look at 48 units, and I have these 2 bedrooms in there, these 2 bedrooms cost a lot more money to build. I'm only gonna get a few $100s more for a 2-bedroom than a 1-bedroom. 1-bedroom is such a demand today. I already own lots of units. I rent them in 2 minutes. That's for the demand. So we need this desperately because it takes 2 minutes to rent a unit. I made the units 1-bedroom because to make them 2 bedrooms, the square footage for me to build is not worth the few dollars more I'm going to get for rent. So I reconsidered everything and took it from 2 bedrooms to 1 bedroom. I thought the town would like that because we don't have a 2nd bedroom. We don't have kids there, nobody in the school. I thought I was doing all the right thing. I still feel I'm doing all the right thing. So that's the answer. It's got nothing to do with structural. Now, I did it for financial reasons because that's what I'm here for. The second thing is I've already went around, I've been doing this for over 40 years. I believe I am an expert. And if you talk to people from building inspectors, wherever you go in this state and talk about me, they're gonna tell you I know what I'm doing because I know what I'm doing. Your own building inspector will tell you that. He was fascinated what I did with the school on Marblehead. Because I know how to do it. So what I'm telling you is I took that part of the building out and that part of the building out because I condensed it. Now I went around the rest of the building with an excavator and dug on the side of the foundation to see what was holding the building up. And it's a footing under it. Secondly, that tells me all I need. But when I'm walking through a building and I don't see cracks in the concrete walls, it tells me that building's been there for over maybe 60 years, 65 years, and it's strong. Now, when other people are looking at it that are not builders, who have not rebuilt a building, until you've done what I've done, please don't tell me what I have. If I thought it was no good, I would not have bought it. So when we get our master plan, at that point, now I'll go, I have to have master plan to take my next step. I've been doing subdivisions for 40 years. I did hundreds of them, Florida here. Let me just finish. I let you talk. We have to know what we're dealing with. We have to have a master plan. We go to DEM. We go to Narragansett Bay. We go every aspect that we have to go to, the water department, everything with a master plan. And then we spend the money with engineers to find out what we need to do for that permit. Whatever permit we may need for preliminary.
No,
So when we
Mr.
go
C,
to-
I understand,
when-
I understand the process.
When
So,
we have a building, when we have master plan, we will then take ZDS in as architects, and we will have a structural engineer at that point who will have a stamp and a signature and let you know everything you need to know.
okay, but we need to know, but my point is we need to know now, at least I do.
The what?
So,
I couldn't hear you.
I said, but we need to know, at least I think so, I'm not speaking for the board, but we need a little bit more information. So I understand the process. And with all due respect, I'm not questioning your expertise, your integrity, your intellect or anything. But with all due respect, that's all anecdotal to me. Because what you're saying to me is what I'm hearing is, trust me. Okay, we answer to the, let me finish, please. We answer to the public. At the previous meeting, we inquired about traffic. And what did we have? We got a traffic expert. He came up and gave us testimony. But what was missing from that, in my opinion, was his stamp. And I asked to have that stamped. Because at some point, if we get
What stamp is that?
the traffic report, I asked to have his professional stamp on that. That's understood. I'm not sure why he didn't put it on, but he didn't, and he said he would. Because ultimately, when we make our decision, we have to base it on empirical evidence, not anecdotal stuff. So we have to say, well, I have a report from, so we can all agree to say, yeah, that's it. With all due respect, again, I'm not questioning your integrity. I'm not questioning your expertise. I'm sure you're a fine builder, sir, and you're a fine developer. I'm not questioning that. But for me to be able to make a cogent, rational decision, I need to have evidence. And my question is, what I'm hearing you say is, I guess this got opened in February. Is that true? Was the public hearing in February?
Correct. Public
So-
hearing for master and preliminary where this same question came up.
Okay,
So just a call to order, right? I think we have a lot of smart people in the room. If we went around the table and spoke about everybody's credentials, we'd be here all night. I do believe that Mr. Asian asked a question about why you reduced the footprint of the building. He did make an assumption on structural integrity of those sections of the building. You provided answer to his question that you reduced the footprint of the building because of financial reasons that you could market one-bedroom apartments versus two-bedroom apartments. Did he answer your question?
No.
He didn't.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then what is it
But
that
so,
you need?
and here's why. So from February to May, we were moving forward on the footprint of the existing building. Okay? You had all that time to consider market conditions and the value of a one-bedroom versus a two. But now when the question that, at least my present time, was when, again, Warren raised that question about the structural integrity. Now you're telling me since May to now June, you had this epiphany about changing the market conditions. And you know what? I think I'll provide a product for ones instead of twos. We've been talking evidently about the structural integrity since February. So what changed between February and May, where you maintained 48 units that include a bunch of two bedrooms, but now all of a sudden between May and 1 month later, the whole paradigm changes. We're reducing the building, not evidently based on structural integrity, but rather what you want to provide as a product to the community. So, you know what, let's not go down that path. I just want to I don't think that question was answered because I got a few others. If we can move on, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So for the record, I don't think you
Well,
answered the question.
I think I answered the question because it's my prerogative to do whatever I want to do with my building, first of all.
Yeah.
Okay, and you made a statement, you want a name on it, you want to know what it is, and you want this and you want that. I also talked to different people in the town who said they would rather have one bedrooms. And that's probably the main reason, just to let you know.
Okay.
Okay, and as far as structural, we will have structure when we're
No,
supposed
I
to.
understand. You
I
made that
understand
about-
what you're saying.
All right.
But you gotta let us do this the way the law says we do it. We can't just make up rules. Because anything that isn't structural will be structural.
Okay.
At
Well,
the time of being built.
I understand. All I said for the record is I don't think you
We're gonna
answered-
move on from the structure because I will add on to that later on, but because actually I'm going to do it now. Given the adaptive reuse nature of this project, and the fact that this building, current building, has no floors in it, I think the board does have the obligation to ask for some structural information that this building structure can support the change in use. It can be adapted.
I'm not
reuse.
disagreeing with your point. The only point I'm disagreeing with is when we should provide you with that information. There's a difference between master plan, which gives us the density, and what we can do, and preliminary. You are going to have that information. You do not need that information at this point in time in order to make a master plan determination. It's not required under your ordinance.
But the master plan, we're gonna be, whether or not we choose to, would be granting X amount of units within the building footprint.
You have to determine if we're meeting the requirements of the adaptive reuse statute. We met the density, so we're entitled to the density. We're entitled to it. We're staying within the footprint of the building. We're meeting all the requirements. You can't point to me one single requirement in that adaptive use statute that we're not meeting here tonight.
You don't have a second floor. You don't have a second floor right now. You don't even have a first
don't-
floor.
we don't-
What are you reusing?
We
What
do
floors
have-
are, what floors are you reusing to support 48 units in this building?
We showed.
You have 0 right now.
You're
And
correct.
I think the board wants to understand conceptually how those floors are gonna be supported.
So to make it clear, we gave you a conceptual plan. We're telling you, we're asking for the number of units based on the adaptive reuse statute. We meet all the elements of the statute. We will provide this board at preliminary all the structural requirements to show that we can do it. We will not provide that information. That's our position. We're not required. And if you're making us do that, you're in violation of the statute. That's our position, respectfully.
That's your position. Thank you.
Can I continue?
Go ahead, Guy.
Thank you. So while the calculation might be that you could yield that density,
Sorry,
I'm sorry, keep doing it.
I'm sorry.
No, no worries. So, you said we meet the density, we're entitled to that. I disagree with you. I don't think you are entitled to that. What that is a mathematical calculation based on your land area versus what the ordinance allows you to propose for density. Okay, simply because you could have 48 units on it, doesn't mean you could actually fit 48 units on it, because if the site was encumbered 75% floodplain and X amount wetland, you can't actually fit all those units on it. So I just want to say for the record, I disagree with the premise that you're entitled to a number of units. So I just want to set that for the record. But let me continue with my questions. So I think you said that you were at the last meeting, you mentioned about sewer availability, and I said I'd like to know what the capacity. At the last meeting, I inquired about, we talked about availability of sewer. You said, well, it's in the street. I said,
Yes.
I understand that it's available, that it's physically there. What I said, what's of importance to us isn't to know that the sewer actually is in the street. Anyone can see that. But as a planner, that's not the point. The point is, what's its capacity? So my question is, because I think you concluded your presentation, you said that's what we have for tonight. My question is, did you follow up to know what the available capacity is in the sewer?
No, and again, I will point to section 8 under your ordinance, major land development, major subdivision preliminary plan, not master, preliminary.
Right.
Under section 2, the requirements, engineering plans depicting proposal development project, a perimeter survey, all permits required by state and federal agencies prior to commencement of construction, including permits related to, and I'll skip most of it, disposal systems, public water systems, and connections to state-owned town roads. That is the point when we need to provide you with that information.
Sure. No, that says to get your permit. I didn't ask you to go get the permit. I asked you a simple question. I'd like to know, as a member of the North Providence Planning Board, whether or not there's sufficient capacity in the sewer line. I didn't say to go get a permit, but that's fine. The answer is no. We're gonna move on. So at the last meeting. Okay, so we can agree to disagree, Mr. C. So at the last meeting, we had a letter from Lieutenant Sarkis Parsegian from the Fire Marshal North Providence. And I
just want to note that this was updated today. I got
Yep,
this afternoon.
Yep. So we have another letter.
Where is that in the packet?
Right after the project summary.
I just pulled that up, David, out of the
It wasn't-
packet.
It wasn't digitally. It
It wasn't
in a
digital. I
digital
got it
copy.
this afternoon.
So in terms of emergency management, fire department, what, 1, 2, 3, he wrote 5 paragraphs in this letter. What he concludes in the letter is, and I'm gonna read this, okay? In closing, the original letter, which he's referring back to last month's, the original letter was not intended to serve as an approval or endorsement of the proposed development. Rather, it was simply an acknowledgement of receipt of the submitted plan. So we have a letter here that just says, hey, yeah, we got the plans, which is perfectly fine. I appreciate that we got acknowledgement from the fire department. But there's nothing substantive here that talks about their opinion about fire access, circulation. It just says, oh, what we meant to say, and this is no reflection whatsoever on the fire department, is, yeah, we received the plans. Let me clarify that, sir. We received the plans. That's what they're telling the board, which is perfectly fine. So now the question is, I'd like to know their opinion on some of the forensics of combating a fire in circulation. Again, I know you're not prepared to answer that, but again, as a member of the planning board, I think that's reasonable information to ask of our fire department for a proposed 48 unit development in what is otherwise, actually, when I made the site visit, actually a very beautiful little subdivision. So we'd like to know, I'd like to know what that impact is, concerned is at the very end of the street, not toward Middle Spring, but at the very end is some additional information from the fire department about their thoughts on the site plan, because all this says is, yep, we acknowledge receipt of the plan.
That's the town's employee. We asked for the letter, and again, under master plan, it says, and we solicit and we get initial comments to be solicited from local agencies, including but not limited to Planning and Community Development Department, fire and police departments, conservation and recreation easements. So we solicited the different initial things. If you are looking for additional information, I would suggest respectfully that would be on the town to request your police, your fire department to request for additional information.
Okay, fair enough, and I will. I think we need to know
And that
fire.
would be, again, a preliminary.
I understand. Again, I think it's appropriate for this board to know fire flow. I think the board should know where the fire hydrants are. Simple planning concepts. We're not asking anything rocket science, simple information, sewer capacity, water location, hydrant location. So that we're comfortable. And
Let me respond, let me just focus on the sewer, for example. So my client may decide to go because it might be more cost effective for him not to connect to public sewer, but to do an ISDS, okay? We can't design an ISDS to say we can even have sufficient amount of sewer there until we know how many units we have, because the engineer needs to know how many units, what the bedroom count is in order to do his design. So we can't answer that question right now. We can only answer it at preliminary.
okay, so what you're essentially saying is we didn't do a capacity analysis, which I think is a very light lift. Let me finish. Let me finish, please. So what you're saying is, please approve a project that right now we don't know what method of sanitary disposal we're gonna have. Because I don't know if it's gonna be IDIS or a septic system. And we didn't do a capacity analysis on the sewer. So planning board, as planners, approve a plan and we'll figure out the sanitary the sanitary disposal later on. That's what you're essentially asking.
Let me finish. How would we be able to determine whether we have sufficient sewer capacity when we're doing, if we're going to go septic system, without knowing from you how many units you're going to approve? Because the only way we can make that determination is to have the number from you relative to the number of bedrooms. That is the key component in determining what kind of ISDS and if we have sufficient capacity. So we need the number from you. Then we can get that information to you at preliminary. We can't do it now.
What is the applicant's concept right now for sewage? What's your concept?
We're looking at both ways. We have a civil engineer here, Tim, working on a system, and we're trying to see if that system, it's cheaper just to put the pipe into the sewer in the road. But Narragansett Bay is extremely expensive now on a commercial building. That building is going to cost, without any flow on a meter, just to be connected, it's going to cost $750 a month. Now, when you put the flow through it, you're going to be around 1180. 1180 times 12 months In 5 years, if I put in a system, I'll pay for the system and won't ever have that bill again. So what would you do? I mean,
I'm asking
I'm
what,
trying, we,
at this point, what's your concept that you're,
we don't know yet. We're working on it. But again,
Okay.
I've done at least 70, 80 subdivisions in North Providence, and there's people up here who can verify that. Condos and houses. We get a master plan first, and then everything is done after that. So if we get our master plan like we're supposed to, then we'll take the steps. We'll get you a plan, we'll get you structural, we'll get you water, sewer. If you want something else at the fire department, I have a plan now saying this is what we got. Why don't you write everything down? So we'll let you know everything you want to know. But we cannot go and do anything without a master plan. Now, you want me to go do a structural?
no, sir. I
No, I'm
believe
saying
you are
if-
misinterpreting the request, or at
You're
least
asking
the
me for structural
acknowledgement.
information on the building.
No,
I add,
master plan is conceptual.
Yes,
What they want is something from the structural engineer in concept that the structure of the building can support the 2 floors.
okay. Let me put it to you this way.
They
Very
need to know the
simple.
viability
Very,
of the
very,
project.
very simple. You put footings in the ground, you carry the 2 floors. If any of you have ever built anything, you know that already. So that's easy enough. What we need to do is have a plan, have a master plan. That's what we need. And then we'll go out and get a plan, and it'll be structural, and it'll be civil. It'll be architecturally proper. We can't do this unless we have a master plan. I don't understand what the
no,
problem is.
I disagree. I disagree with that.
The issue is your concept has to work.
It will work by preliminary.
The viability, even though master plan is conceptual, the board wants to know the viability of the plan. You're putting 2 new floors in the building. How's it gonna work?
So
Conceptually.
Armin can explain conceptually, and our architect can explain conceptually, which I thought the architect did by providing you with a set of plans. Conceptually, this is how it's going to work.
No, the architect in my opinion, the architect provided a set of plans that depicted what the exterior elevation was going to look like on a concept. And he provided a space plan fit out for the new footprint of the building, period. I don't have, and I don't believe the board has, any assurance from a structural engineer that the concept of adding 2 new floors in this building is structurally feasible. I'm not talking about structurally engineered drawings. I'm talking about a structural feasibility study of the building that can be stamped by a structural engineer that deems whether or not the existing structure can support the new structure that you're proposing to support all these units on, in the spirit of adaptively reusing the building. This is an adaptive reuse project, so we are vetting out the feasibility of how the adaptive reuse-ness of this building can actually work. And strictly conceptual feasibility. I'm not asking for structural stamped drawings.
So I'm not a structural engineer, so I can't speak on their behalf, but I can say that not all of the walls that are around the perimeter would be bearing the weight of the new level. So right now there's a first floor, there's a roof, so we're really just adding 1 additional level. And with the addition of the piers to hold up the first level, because it has to be raised above the floodplain, the majority of those would be holding most of the weight. The way we usually lay out our units, the demising walls and the corridor walls are all load bearing, as well as the, in some cases, the exterior walls. But in other cases, you can do it from demising wall to demising wall. So you can actually do it without bearing on the exterior. There's also a portion There's also a way of doing it where we can put piers on the inside, so it's like set in as if it's like a steel structure, where the outside is just left as it is. But again, I'm not a structural engineer, so I can't speak and tell you that that will actually work. It's just what I've seen and what I've worked on in different projects. And if we need that reassurance from a structural engineer, they have to provide, or usually they do calculations. So our structural engineer doesn't truly know, wouldn't be able to know because we haven't started the drawings yet. He can only give a recommendation and maybe a quick report, but nothing more than that.
Excuse me, something.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of you have a deck on your house. Your deck on your house doesn't float in the air. It's got footings, and the footings hold it. It's going to be the same situation, probably cement footings that are 2 to 3 feet wide and 1.5 feet high, are dug into below the cement floor that's there right now. And this floor will hold itself, and that floor will hold second floor. There will be no bearing on the walls for the floors or even the furniture in it. There'll be no bearing on the walls. The bearing will all be on the floor. And the floor will be bolted to the walls, so if anything, it'll support the walls because it's already supporting itself. The floor is not going to be hanging off the walls. The floor is going to be on footings. I've already done this lots of times. I'm telling you, I know what I'm doing. And so when you're asking me
So,
for
Mr. C,
something I
once again,
can't
you're
provide
saying
you with.
to the public, we have to say, Mr. C knows what he's doing. That's our answer? So what, with all due respect, let me finish. You're saying to us that when we leave here, we're residents, and we bump into people all the time, and they ask Mr. Agent, so what was the rationale? So I'm gonna say, well, Mr. C said all right. So really?
I'm not, I don't want you to believe me.
That's
But
right.
what I'm going to tell you is I have to come back here to a preliminary meeting.
But we have to get past this hurdle
I know,
first.
but when we come with a preliminary, we're gonna come with a plan.
Yeah.
And the plan's gonna show you footings and structural, and you'll be all set at that.
We're not
point.
asking for that right now, sir. So.
Well, that's the way we're supposed to do it.
Yeah, and we're saying actually, you don't have to do that right now. So we're actually trying to make it easier for you, but we need something more than nothing right now.
I don't
Mr.
understand.
Chair, can I go on with the
And-
other questions? I'm
Not,
sorry
not to
about-
beat a dead horse, we could have our structural engineer write a letter to you stating that, he will be able to design this in order to structurally support a second floor. Is that the type of letter you're looking for? Short of doing engineering work, just from a structural engineer saying, in my 40 years of experience, I've built hundreds of these things. In my experience, we'll be able to support that second floor by putting in footings and doing this, and therefore it is a viable project. Is that the type of thing you're looking for?
Yeah, I think we're looking for clarification on what the intent of the structure will be for this project.
Intent of, can you explain
Yeah,
intent of the?
yeah, he can put together a narrative as into what the structural system is going to be. And he
Wait, hold on.
he absolutely can. He absolutely can concept that. You guys talk about your experience in the construction business. I do too. I've worked with structural engineers. They can put together a narrative like that. I think in the fact that this is an adaptive reuse project, I think the board has an obligation to interpret whether or not that intent for that structural system to support 2 brand new floors in this building is applicable for adaptive reuse.
We could have a structural engineer write a narrative, short of doing specific calculations. Am I understanding that? Is that something that you'd be interested in seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna go back to this.
Okay, I understood.
So I'm gonna go back to the sewer. Mr. McQueen, I heard you say earlier, what we're looking from the board is, tell us the number. You said you want a number from us, a number of units. Didn't you say that?
Yes.
Okay, so your proposal, though, you're making a proposal to the board of 48 units. In order, again, for me to assess the 48 units, I'm not gonna randomly come up with some number to say, yeah, I don't know, 25 sounds good. We can't do that. That's not fair to you either. So in order for us to evaluate what you want is 48 units, and that's fair enough, because at least that's the ceiling, that's a mathematical calculation. For us to determine if that is worthy, and it might be worthy of 48 units, I'd need to know whether if you do an IDIS system, that's a completely different, but you're saying, well, what if it is IDS? Well, what if it's sewer? So the only information we have right now is we know a known. The one known is there's a sewer line there. The other known is there's a certain amount of capacity in that. Based on your proposal to the planning board of we want 48 units, all I'm asking is, one way to look at it is proposed 48 units on an existing sewer system. So one way to evaluate that, okay, well, is there sufficient capacity? Maybe there is, and then takes the question away. Or if you came back and said, no, not 48, there isn't, but there is sufficient capacity for 36. So now the needle moves from 48 to 36 based on available capacity. You could then say, hey, look, it's not 48, it's 36, but board, we don't want to do that now because this project might not be feasible. We need to look at an IDIS system, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do because that could maybe, well, you keep rolling your eyes and that's not fair.
I'm not rolling my eyes.
You roll your eyes at me. All right. So what I'm going to say is,
Keep my eyes, sir, but I was not rolling my eyes.
okay, fair enough. I accept that. The one way for us to determine what that number is, it being 48, is whether or not, at least with what we have for information, is the capacity in the sewer line. So once again, I don't know what the heavy lift is to work with the water department or the wastewater department or sewer department and say, look, here's what we're proposing. I'm sure you've already talked to them. Say, is there sufficient capacity? What's wrong with getting a letter from the wastewater department saying, yeah, we got sufficient capacity. We could accommodate 48 units. I don't see what the problem is with that. And it takes that away. It takes that layer of questioning away. It gives me a better sense that we're moving in the right direction. But right now, I don't have that information. So again, you don't have to answer that right now. I'm just saying, I'm not sure what the trouble is giving the board some more information. Much like this letter from the fire department. All they're saying is we received the letter, we received the plans. So let's move on. Here's a simple, two more planning items. I don't see a landscaping plan. I don't see a site lighting. I don't see any photometrics. A very simple, I'm gonna throw you a softball, and you should knock this over the fence, okay? There's a
8-foot
dumpster.
fence?
Huh?
Is it an
It's an
8-foot
8-foot fence, 2 feet off the side. So I see the dumpster right on. I see the dumpster right on Beard Avenue. I made a site visit. I made 2 site visits. I ran into some of the residents there. I'm not gonna mention names. I drove by, I said hello. I say that because I want to demonstrate that I went there. I didn't go with anyone from the board. I went there with my daughter. I have to tell you, those 4 houses across the street from Beard, those are gorgeous homes. Those are beautiful homes. So a simple site plan is, I'll tell you, if I live there and I'm gonna have a dumpster go down to the very end of that street, have them pull around, make all that noise and that smell from a dumpster and putting that on the residents across the street, then I would submit to you respectfully, you could easily take that dumpster and it shouldn't smell, and I'm sure it's gonna be screened. I would put that on your property so that the residents on your property have to deal with that potential nuisance. So I think that's a simple modification to the plan so that you don't have a dumpster going down Baird where these residents, at least those immediately across the street, have to live there. What, I don't know how often the dumpster, the dump truck comes or the dumpster truck comes once a week, once every 2 weeks, but until they come, they're gonna have to live with that for 2, 3, 4 days, maybe a week. I don't think that's fair. So at the very least, I respectfully ask if you can relocate that dumpster from Baird Avenue and find some place on the site plan to incorporate it there.
Tim, do you have any objection or is it feasible to locate the dumpster somewhere else on the site other than
Well, there's,
right on Beard Avenue?
we'll have to take a careful look at the site plan, but the majority of the site on the other side of the building is in the flood zone.
Okay, so I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I'd rather you find, well, first of all, I'm not gonna buy that because
Yeah.
you said at the last hearing and more so on this revised plan, that you're taking out even more impervious area. So as you take out more impervious area, I'm not gonna say provide compensatory storage. I'm not saying 1-to-1, but the fact is that you are now providing pervious area, which would absorb more rainwater. So I see a square or a rectangle that might be roughly 10 by 12. I'm sure you're a smart engineer, and I mean that sincerely because I know you. I would say, I'm sure you could find someplace on that parking lot to come up with an area either on the existing impervious area or create a 120 square foot pad that's screened to take away what would be a daily nuisance from those residents. And I'm not saying to put the nuisance with the residents, because it shouldn't be a nuisance, but it probably is gonna be sometimes, especially in July and August, and put it on the property, on your site. I think that's an easy, simple request.
That's where we had it originally, was in our site.
I'm sorry?
The original location from the first meeting was in our site, in our parking area.
Yeah.
But that area is technically in the flood zone.
Okay, so's the parking lot. So's the parking lot. So you
Correct.
don't have to put it in the floodplain. You could put it outside the floodplain. I'm sure there's enough upland here. And then,
Well,
and
we hear you. We're gonna take a good hard look. We'll work with the planning department and come up with
I
a
want to see
better
it on a
location.
revised plan is what I'm saying. I'm not saying as a condition of approval. I want to see it on a site plan.
Correct,
All right.
yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Do you have the environmental study yet?
No, we don't. They're still working on it. They decided to do a few test holes, Armin. They're doing a few test holes now.
Okay. On the IDS system, assuming you had 48 units, where would the IDS system go?
We've just been tasked with this, to take a look at it. So we've scheduled test holes with DEM to, determine the soil types out there because we need to know depth of groundwater. We need to know the soil textures to be able to determine suitable locations. So that test has been scheduled. We haven't been given a date by DEM, but it's been applied for already. So I would imagine the next 3 weeks we'll be out there doing soil testing.
Okay.
Any more questions, Steve? I'll go to this side. You guys have any questions for the applicant at this time regarding the new information that we've been given tonight? Go ahead, Warren.
How do we stand with DEM? Have you received any word from DEM yet?
He asked if you've received any update from DEM. I think I know what you meant.
The DEM submission comes after master plan, okay?
The DEM submission comes after master plan, which I believe the applicant is correct.
Just as an aside, this statute is new, this adaptive reuse statute, but I had conversations with other lawyers about the issue of the structural. And what they told me is, I'm not calling your argument ridiculous. I don't know that's not the word I mean to say, but the ridiculousness of the argument is that we could right now take this commercial building, we could fix it all up. Just pull a permit, fix the walls if they were broken, put walls in, put footings in, all commercial. And then we come to you and say, oh, now we're going to build, now we're going to ask for our master plan approval. Doing all that work ahead of time before we even come in here. We're going to need to do that work. But the point we're trying to make is that, we don't want to spend the money until we get to preliminary. And I know you're saying that the feasibility of this project, the structural feasibility is going to come about at preliminary plan. We're going to have to spend the money. We're going to have to give the engineering. We're going to have to show you that this can be done. But we're going to get, and we can get a letter from the structural engineer, a narrative saying what he plans to do with no guarantees, but this is what I think we can do. And I think we're going to be able to do this. I mean, we're going to get it. It's all about money. You spend enough money, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to do, quite frankly. We all know that. So it's going to get done. And he can give you a narrative to that effect without getting into this minutia of, the carrying weight and the load and all that until he's able to deal with the architect.
Correct. And one thing I would like for the structural engineer to comment, again, in light of this being an adaptive reuse application, is the reuse of the existing structure to support your project. Your project.
Project. He's
To
not
support
talking
your
about
project.
walls, just to say in a narrative manner that this is something he, in his opinion, as an expert, he thinks he'll be able to engineer.
Correct.
Is that, okay,
Correct. But he needs to specifically comment on the existing structure. This was a manufacturing building. The building does not have 2 stories that you are proposing in it at all. It has a very, at one time, limited area of a second floor. What you're proposing is the entire thing to be a second floor. So there's a huge change there. Okay, and this is adaptive reuse. I'd like for the engineer to weigh in on the adaptive reuse qualities of the existing structure and your proposed plan. He can do that in narrative.
we can do that.
Tim, while you're standing there, the reduction in the footprint. So the 2 areas that are being proposed to be demolished, what's the material that's going to be replacing them on the grade surface? Is it?
Those areas are gonna be landscaped.
They're going to be landscaped,
Yeah,
so
there'll
it
be
only
room to
increases
see.
your.
I mean, one area had like a sidewalk now going through that to get to a door.
So a reduction of the footprint of the building only increases your pervious.
The
Sorry,
majority of it, the substantial majority would be pervious.
pervious,
Yes,
right?
pervious. But
Yep.
there was I know there was a sidewalk going through one of those areas.
Yep. Yeah, so a
Okay.
reduction of the footprint increases the amount of pervious area, material that you're adding to the property.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you. Have there been any changes to the smaller building of the project? Since the last time you were here, have there been any changes to the smaller building of the project?
Oh.
No, okay, that remained as, thank you. Lou, you have a question?
Yeah, I just one more question on the sewer issue. Could the ISDS system be constructed within the flood zone?
I mean, technically, yes, we do it all the time. Coastal areas. You know, the coastal area, there's septic systems all over the coast. So there's no specific septic code about flood zones. It's more the wetland code requires floodplain compensation. We can't just fill it in without compensating the same volume somewhere else in the immediate area.
So you feel that there's enough area on this site to construct?
Well,
a
that's what
system?
we're looking into right now. We scheduled the test holes with DEM, so we're gonna know where to test, because we need to know water tables and the soil texture to size them. Without that information, we really can't size the leach fields. So once we have that, we can come up with a concept.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions from the board for the applicant at this time?
Well, a question for the board, just so we're all clear for expectations for the next meeting. So I understand, Mr. McGreen, or Attorney McGreen, you're willing to submit that structural engineering letter, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay. All right, so I have 5 other bullets, and I'd like to know whether or not we could expect these. If the answer is no, that's fine, but I want to ask. So I want to see whether or not there's a willingness to relocate the dumpster. I want to see a photometrics plan for the lighting. Sorry, so first, so actually I should ask this through the chair,
Yeah.
please, if that's okay, David, right?
Yep.
Right,
yep,
so
go
this
ahead.
is, right, so what I'm saying is they checklist, they said yes about the structural engineering plan,
Correct.
letter.
Yep.
What I would also ask through the chair is 5 other bullets. 4 of these would come from the applicant. A revised plan for the dumpster, a photometric analysis for the site lighting, just so that there's no spillover onto the residents, so it's like
I
dark
understand.
sky compliant.
Yep.
I'd like to have a sewer capacity analysis, and I'd like to see a landscaping plan. For staff, I would ask if the planning board would agree to ask the town planner to get a letter from the fire department with an opinion about circulation, access, and a fire flow test. So
So,
they're proposing 48 units in an old abandoned building. And I want to see if there is sufficient fire flow test. It could be maybe 3,000 gallons per minute PSIG, it could be 4,000, it could be
Right.
1,500.
One, okay, so.
think I
Well,
missed-
no,
I
no,
missed
through
one.
through the chair. What were your 5 bullets through the chair? The,
Structural engineering,
structural engineering letter,
dumpster relocation,
willingness to, yep.
photometrics analysis.
You don't need, I don't think they need a metric analysis for master plan, but for preliminary, absolutely.
Capacity analysis of the existing sewer. What available capacity?
What available capacity? Yep, I would request that.
A landscaping plan.
I would request a more robust landscaping plan than what's provided, yes.
And the other, Mr. Chair, through the
I
staff,
could have read them down first, Tom, please.
through the staff is a letter from the fire department. I mean, again, this says we've received the plans, but I'd like to understand their assessment of that plan, including a fire flow test.
So I'd like to, I talked to the fire department and I specifically asked for them to review the access to the site and the circulation. And they refused to comment on that because they said that's not their purview or specialty. So they did refuse to
So.
write a memo for that.
Okay, so just to be, because you had 2 things there, right?
Yeah.
So the planning board did ask for the fire department's opinion on accessing. Yeah, gentlemen, can you quiet down, please? Ms. McGreen? No, the microphone's just picking you up and we're having a hard time. We have a very good stenographer and we want to make sure the meeting minutes are kept. So we did ask for the fire department to weigh an opinion on accessing the site, given the fact that Beard Avenue is a dead-end street without a cul-de-sac. And right now, Beard Avenue, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 private residences on the west side, and on the east side right now is an abandoned commercial building that we are adding 40, the applicant is proposing 48 units for, which to me, I think is a valid request that the fire department weigh in on accessing the site, not specifically the access that or circulation within the site, but just access to the site, and they refuse to do that.
So essentially what they said was conditions aren't changing. They can access the site now. They'll be able to access the site when this development comes.
Okay,
So
That-
that's essentially what they told me.
regardless of whether or not it's a vacant commercial manufacturing building or it's chock full with 48 single unit
Yeah, they said
residences.
conditions will remain the same. They did review circulation on site as far as parking goes, and they said that was acceptable, but they refused to comment as far as the road goes because they're not traffic engineers essentially.
Okay. Gary, you had another.
Part 2 was a fire
Part
flow test.
part 2 is a fire flow test. And that's to the
Well, they would do.
the
a
fire department would be doing that.
Or if they could get a consultant, they would submit a static report as part of their conclusion and submit it to us. We could then, instead of tying up the fire department, then we could have the applicant get a consultant engineer. They could do the study, then they could submit it to us, and we can just ask the fire department just to check it. Just not to tie up the fire department.
Yeah, considering the fire department's response to accessing the site and in that this building is reducing in size, the existing conditions aren't gonna change.
Sure, but it was a factory, now it's gonna be residences, so I think it's a different, completely different concept. So while they might, I don't know what their plan would have been to attack a fire if it was a factory, but potentially there would be 48 households. And while the fire flow might be sufficient for a factory, it might not be sufficient for a 48 unit development. And I just would like to know what that fire flow is and then ask the fire department, is this again, pounds per square inch gauge and like gallons per minute?
Let him finish.
I'd like to add
Yeah.
that the fire department said they are gonna do a further review at the next step of internal fire safety codes and whatnot. So there's gonna be another fire review after this as well. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I understand both your comments. Yeah, I think Mr. Arazian's request is, I think the request can be made to the fire department for a flow test at this point. Can you please ask them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank
Do
you.
that.
So just to be
The
clear, Brent,
memo about flow.
yeah, so it's GPM and pounds per square inch gauge.
Okay.
PSIG. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for?
No, not at this time. So the bullets that, I guess I allowed passed through me, thanks.
Of course.
So
You shouldn't thank me. I'm
what did
sorry,
you,
Frank.
the photometrics, I don't think is applicable for
Okay.
master plan.
So I-
We will request one for preliminary if it gets to that stage.
So I had, just to recap, you were looking for a landscape plan?
Yep.
Correct, landscape plan. You were looking for the narrative from the structural engineer.
Correct.
You were looking for, sewer capacity analysis or availability, which I suppose we could get a letter from, who would get the letter from, Tim?
The Narragansett Bay Commission.
And what would the letter state?
There's sufficient capacity in our system to connect the proposed, use and please apply in the future when you're ready.
Well, I wouldn't say use, I'd say 48 units.
It's not the application, it's just a generic letter we get from them stating they're aware of this project and please apply in the future.
Well, it all
If they have
depends how
any
you ask.
capacity issues, they
Well,
would identify at
Depends how you
that
ask the
stage.
question.
Yeah.
So I would say, and the question would be, we are proposing a 48 unit multifamily development.
Correct.
Right.
They
As long
would
as
see
you
our
ask
site
that-
plan, correct.
Tim, as long as you ask it that way,
Yeah,
whatever we get, you don't have any control over that. So that's, but you gotta ask the question though.
correct. And we're not subpoenaing that.
And the
So,
town's, the fire department issue with additional information from the fire department.
yep, that's through the staff and then the dumpster.
Yeah.
And the letter to be signed by Rhode Island Housing letter to be signed.
Yep.
And the traffic.
And the traffic, I think to be,
The stamp,
yeah.
yeah.
Stamp.
not stamped that yet. Said it was sent.
Yeah, it wasn't stamped yet.
Still not, he hasn't sent the stamp plan in?
I haven't gotten it.
My point is, let me just finish.
for preliminary after we do all this.
So just to raise the issue with timing, I think we gave you a 30-day, they asked for a waiver because I think that the board has to make a decision within 120 days. So 120?
It's 90 days.
90 days.
So obviously, if the board is of the purview to continue the public hearing further, we would ask the applicant for a further extension to allow you guys to get that.
Next,
Yes. To most likely, is there a July meeting?
Yeah.
To the July meeting, I guess, would be the next meeting,
so,
unless the applicant needs more time for that.
no, we don't, no. Hold on, let me, I'm gonna ask my client whether or not there's gonna be sufficient time to get what we're asking for.
I gotta.
We're gonna,
One thing you're gonna get.
we're not gonna be able to get a letter from Narragansett Bay Sewer by next month.
Guys, in the light of time for this meeting, maybe if you guys, well, actually, you need to be in the room because I still have to open up for public comment.
We may or may not be able to get that letter by the next meeting. We'll ask for it tomorrow. Not sure. I mean, it's kind of up to them is when they want to produce the letter. We'll be able to get the narrative from the engineer. Armin, is there something else that you said you didn't think we'd be able to get within 30 days?
Only thing. I mean, it's not like enough.
No, we already talked about the lighting. We're not being required to ask for the lighting at this point in time.
The only thing I think you're gonna be able to get is the structure. He'll give you comments on what will be. He doesn't even have a plan. Does not have a plan. We have to put a plan.
I'm gonna speak to me. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna repeat myself. I have worked with tons of structural engineers. There are plenty out there that will provide this service without having to do drawings, and we are not asking for drawings.
They'll give you a narrative, okay, saying that we can put a footing in here and it can hold first, second floor, they can do that. Okay, but they can't give you an actual, where the footings will be and all
We're
that.
not, we're not
because they
asking
need-
for that.
So,
Jack, Mr.
they'll
Green,
put something
we are
together.
asking
I
for,
understand what you're asking for,
thank you.
and I'll speak,
Make sure though that the structural engineer comments on the applicable reuse of the existing structure.
right, I wrote
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Let me just make sure I have that.
So if there's not enough time between now and the July meeting, should we continue to August or are you gonna try to get it all done for July?
So I just want to, I was going through the list with Armin and not sure on the letter from Narragansett Bay Sewer Commission. We will be able to get the narrative from the, structural engineer. We will be able to get the letter signed by Rhode Island Housing. We will be able to get the plans stamped, that was submitted last time. Was that, I think that was it, right?
Right.
Was that,
And the dumpster.
Environmental stuff.
Mike?
Dumpster, and then you'll probably most likely have an update on the environmental study by then as well.
And
Um,
if we have the environmental phase one complete, we'll produce that.
Yeah.
So, I think that was it, right?
Landscape. Yeah, he had landscaping. He had them down. Landscaping. Mark just wanted to make sure you had the landscaping plan there.
Landscaping plan?
Yeah.
Right, I have that, yeah.
Yep.
We'll be able to get a landscaping plan within 30 days, Armin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it for now. I just wanted to put on the record, from last meeting, that, I just wanted to put an objection on the record that we did object to the town council through its attorney, appearing before the board. Because, quite frankly, I think that probably is an ethics violation because this board approves, I believe the mayor picks them, but this board approves. The town council approves, so I think that, just for the record, that I don't expect a response. I just wanted to put it on the record.
Okay, can you restate it I have no idea what you just said.
I'm saying that the town council retained an attorney to appear before this board to object to the application. I believe that is an ethics violation, and I just wanted to put that on the record.
How so? I'm just curious what your thought process is.
Because they appointed the board here. There's a conflict of interest between, they're not supposed to appear if they were doing something personal on their residence, they have to go in and get a waiver or relief. And they just showed up and they've appointed the board. And so I think that's a violation. So I'm just putting it on the record, in case this thing goes sideways, that I have that objection on the record. So if I need to take an appeal, that objection's been made.
So you're saying that the town council, whether they appear before the board or hire a spokesperson.
An attorney.
So so a city council, a town council represents the constituents, the residents of the city. You're saying that because they confirmed the appointment of the mayor, that they can't appear before a municipal board?
No, you confirm the appointment of this board.
Right.
Yes.
So you're saying that because they're not the appointing authority, the mayor's the appointing authority. Because this town council appoints, or perhaps not appoint, they either confirm or not confirm the appointee, that because they're again, let's call it the appointing authority, that they can't appear before this board?
Yes, objecting to the application.
The fact that they represent the residents of this town of North Providence can't appear before this board.
Correct.
And wow.
My objection.
All right, I guess. So noted.
Does that conclude your presentation for tonight?
It does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, the time is 7:55. Yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess and then we'll open it up for public comment.
David, we have to do, if we're gonna continue, we have to do public comment? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. We have, I was like, that's fine, we have to do that. Okay, I was just checking. Yeah, we have to do that and,
Short meeting, don't.
That's why I didn't want to comment on that.
Tell my wife, I said, should be a short meeting, it's here about 9:30.
Yeah.
All right.
I know.
So like, there's something called color of office. Have you heard of?
I believe it's,
Color of Office?
yeah, there are.
There's like, there's something called color of office. That like, when you, yeah, right.
Yeah, right, that's what they got. Yeah.
Blonde colors. It's when you, it's, the whole point of it is when you.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at the septic standards.
Very expensive. I think
Yeah.
he's in for a rude awakening. But I don't know. I'm not in that business. And the way you're gonna put it, you have to put in the floods.
I think basically you guys are very much qualifying everything that you say with valid answers and concerns. Like, I don't think that that's, I don't think somebody can say that you guys are acting differently than you would have otherwise if the council didn't do that. That's open. So I think you're fine.
Basically, you say you will defend that, you have to be able to defend.
That's
this,
why.
yeah.
Also, 48.
I'll look into it, double check, but like, I can't imagine you guys, it sounds like you guys are acting as much as you would anyway, whether the council's here or not. Yeah.
And those units are expensive. From what little I know, they're very expensive.
No, I said the names, yeah.
No, I know. So you have,
But it may be
you
now.
have the option, if you want to close the public hearing, you can, and just make your decision, but basically you guys asked for a whole bunch of stuff, so you might want to just keep it open. So you.
Yeah, I'll try to,
and
corral and keep it focused, to the new evidence presented and the new requests.
That's what I told the wife. I
Yeah.
said, should be a short meeting.
Anything else?
9:30.
Right.
So,
Yeah, the fire department, they said, nothing's changed.
I
We only
drafted
review roads
both-
if there's change. So we only review
Behind it now with the
turnarounds, really.
facts,
That's
both
all that's in the fire
some
code.
findings if you guys want to deny, and both
So-
findings if you guys want to approve.
Yeah.
So I'll send that out to you guys and you can just see what you want to do. I feel like you're going towards one way, but it's up, we'll see.
would you be able
I'll send it to you.
No, I don't, yeah, I want to,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can.
I don't know your email. Is it just,
Well, I mean, I'm on.
I'm on the agenda email. You're probably on that. All right, I'll just send it to you directly.
It's DAP 77,
Okay.
but, given the.
Turn that off.
Princess friend,
I know.
right, Steve?
How's it going? Oh, I had no idea, like, the passes tonight.
How you been? Good. Yeah. Are you? What happened to your job?
Oh. That's what. We have good, much better for the community, for the town. Right now. Looking up, because I asked a question about ISDS. Says genuinely discouraged and open prohibited. So, I don't know where he thinks about it. Because most of the thought that hope is in the blood. And for 40 years, it's not like I think it's been- ISDS, but
Yes.
and it actually, it says that it's generally discouraged and often prohibited. I don't know where he's gonna build it.
Well, they gotta figure that out.
I don't even know if they.
What are you gonna do?
It wasn't good enough. No. Someone had more. Did you see the speakers? Oh, I didn't. No, I know the way they. How big was that door? Good job. Good
I am.
I read it.
Oh, I am. I am. Don't worry about it. It's 8 o'clock. Oh, it's 8:04.
Let's go.
10-minute peek. I said 5. And we listened.
We have to corral all these people.
Where's Gary? Gary's there. Warren's there. Where's our attorney?
He's in the back. I don't know.
No, our attorney, Belica. Right. And tell him to come.
Even new council. I got overruled.
Because last time we went from 8:30. Hopefully it's not that long.
Gary?
You're welcome.
Joe, do
Yeah.
you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I-
Okay. But I'm calling. Hi, good evening. All right, everybody. Thank you for obliging the council the planning board that short recess. It is 8:06. We will open up the hearing for public comment. Before we do, I would like our council to introduce herself as Attorney Golone had to step away.
Good evening, everyone. Angelica Bovis. I'm the newly appointed counsel for the planning board and the zoning board. I was stopped by a few residents this evening, so it's nice to meet you all, and I'll be the new attorney moving forward.
Okay, and just a kind reminder and request for a public comment. So tonight we heard new modifications to the application. I kindly ask that your comments be limited to those revisions and not repeat comments that were discussed publicly last hearing. And if your neighbor or somebody speaks to one particular topic and you agree to that topic and the comment that your neighbor has made, yes, please come up and state that you agree with that statement. And I think that will be enough for the board. So if everybody can just oblige by those rules, the board will greatly appreciate it. And in light of Mr. McGreen's previous objection, I do ask that the board here not be colored by any comments made by town representatives. Thank you. Just please
Thank
state your name.
My name is Anthony DeSisto. I'm the lawyer that Mr. McGreen mentioned. My offices are at 450 Veterans Memorial Parkway in the city of East Providence. And I was hired by the town of North Providence not only to make sure that this matter goes as it should from a procedural standpoint, but also to make sure that the neighbors' voices are heard too. I'm not going to address the particulars of the presentation that came up. And I'm not going to address the so-called ethics issue that was raised by Mr. McGreen. You know what? I'll fight that out in court because I think that was wholly inappropriate. And if it has to be litigated, it will. I don't think it's appropriate that was said at this stage. Whatever he does in court afterwards, we'll see. But I do have some procedural issues that I think is important for the board to consider here. Last month, there was a continuance here, and now you have a new plan. That new plan did not go through the process. It should have, but was not. It's a wholly new plan. And I view that as a procedural flaw. Tonight shouldn't even be considered. That's the first thing. The second thing is I heard through the presentation, the word that was said the most was concept. And, you know, concept is actually in the Enabling Act, specifically section 452335, general provisions, pre-applications meeting and concept review. I'd submit to the board tonight, you don't have a master plan application in front of you. You have a concept plan review. What the applicant is asking you to do is go from a concept plan review where no votes are taken and jump to preliminary plan review on this. I think that's a procedural flaw.
I actually don't think what you have before you tonight even constitutes a master plan application. And I'd ask the board to consider this. You have an R10 zone over there, and you have 3 acres. You have an application for 48 units. The questions you were asking, are they appropriate? Yes, they are. For a concept like that, 48 units, to me, you need to have the information for that. And I submit to you also, you don't have an application before you for adaptive reuse. On its face, the application isn't an adaptive reuse. There's a building there. It's not in good shape. You're gonna have a new building. It doesn't even have the same footprint. Doesn't even have the same floors. This isn't an adaptive reuse. This is a bootstrapping to the adaptive reuse statute to allow for 48 units in an R10 zone. To me, I just don't think it can be approved on that basis. You have a very new plan here on this. It's not even the same building. And finally, I don't know how many plans you've seen for this. I mean, I haven't been here for the entire process, but it seems to me that you have a new plan now. You had another plan last month. It was continued, so that plan could be considered, but now you have a new plan. So I'm not going to continue on, but what I do think you need to do is deny this application. I don't think, just from what I've heard in these 2 meetings, that the applicant has a good grasp of what can happen here and whether or not adaptive reuse is appropriate for this building. It appears to me that it's not. And it's unfortunate because you have an R10 zone, as Mr. Arasian pointed out, you have some nice homes in the area. This is an attempt to put an apartment building into an R10 zone. The building that you have there really isn't appropriate for that. And I did hear the applicant say, well, you know, he's trying to make money. And of course, that's what happens with developers. But I would ask you to consider this, because he also said, you know, you have to take his word for these things. And I'm sure he's a fine developer and all that. But if there's problems, who's going to pay for those problems? That's one of the reasons I'm here. Because if there are problems here and there has to be corrections made later, the town is going to have to take care of that. The taxpayers are going to have to take care of that. The town council is going to have to consider it. The mayor's going to have to consider that too. And that's something for you to consider on this. This is a very difficult site. That's become clear, I think, in the meetings I've been to, and I'm sure you agree on that. If there are issues here, it's going to be the town's responsibility to fix them because the town approved the application. And I just ask you to consider that. And I ask you tonight to deny this application. And if this developer, if this applicant can come back to you with some plans so you're not constantly asking questions and you don't hear at the meetings, well, we'll come back next month with this. Next month, we'll come back with this. Then it's a different story. It's difficult to these neighbors to keep coming back to this moving target. Every month is something new. That tells me there's a problem with the site. That tells me that there's a problem with this project. I'd ask you to deny it. Let them go back to the drawing board. Let them come up with the information that they need, not for a concept plan review application, but for a true master plan application. And perhaps if a little more research is done, they'd see that this is not appropriate for adaptive reuse. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. DeSisto. I do not have any questions for you at this time. Any of my fellow board members have questions, you can direct them to Mr. DeSisto now. Seeing a lot of head shaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
for coming
much.
up. Would anybody else from the public like to speak? Please state your name and your address clearly.
Stacy, Stacey, Lantane, Lantagene, 77 Dorman, Dorman Avenue in North Providence. I just wanted to just follow up on the adaptive reuse thing because it's a new statute and I think everybody's kind of like struggling their way through it. I mentioned last time that it seems to name a lot of much bigger buildings as the examples of what are adaptive reuse. It says offices, schools, religious facilities, medical buildings, malls. If you just look into it, these are like huge buildings. I just point that out because the high density unit math seems to be in response to, yeah, you've got a 250,000 square foot mall. Of course, that high density makes sense. Here, you put in 48 units, you don't even have windows in some of the units, right? Because I don't think it really fits the mold. But one thing I would just add to what I'm reading this statute, and it says, adaptive reuse for the conversion of any commercial building, including offices, schools, religious facilities, et cetera, into residential use developments, shall be a permitted use. It is a permitted use. It's zoned R10. So I don't know, it's already zoned residential. We don't need this statute to convert it into residential. It's zoned residential. So I'm not even sure why we're really talking about this statute just from the first sentence. And I don't represent anyone here. I do know how to read a statute though. So I was just reading the statute and I just wanted to just bring that up because I think that is why we are having such a hard time. We are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And I just wanted to have that in the record. Thanks.
Thank you. Stacy? Yep, so just, no, that's okay. Just to comment on some of your comments, the board did ask our council whether or not manufacturing use fits into or is applicable for the adaptive reuse projects. And we did get a recommendation from him that manufacturing is, but
Okay.
but not specifically size of the building. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public like to speak? Okay. Clearly state your name and address.
Hi, good evening. It's Lucy Harrison, Harrison. Lucy, Lucy. First, I want to thank you all. And obviously, I'm not going to waste anyone's time here because we all know what we're fighting for. We do not want this project in our street. We do not. And that's the reason why I'm coming, to make sure that it doesn't get done. He doesn't know what he's doing. As if he did, we wouldn't be here at this time. So I'm asking, please, please deny this. Deny it. And I will leave you with this question. You don't have to answer. If this was in your area, would you want this there? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yep, go right ahead. Can you mind standing up?
Ms. Harrison, so you asked the board if it was in our neighborhood, so let me ask you this. I drove by a couple of times and it is a substandard, blighted building. It's decadent. It's falling apart in my humble opinion.
I have pictures.
But my question to you is this. So if that was a green pasture, I'd agree. Would you want to put a multifamily development at the very end of a single family dwelling, street? I agree with you. But I guess my question is, you said, if you lived here, it's an old building, it's falling apart.
Right.
So my question would be, is the alternative better of having that building just stay there? Just from your
Just
opinion,
knock it
just
down.
was wondering that,
Just knock it down and maybe a park for dogs. So a lot
but
of.
we don't own it. The city doesn't, it's privately owned, so we can't just go and put something there. So I was just curious, I'm not sure where you live relative to this, but
Second to the last house from where this is going to be built.
yeah. So you're actually more comfortable leaving that the way it is than what, a resident?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fair
Yes.
enough. Fair
Yes.
enough.
At this time, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fair question, Gary. Anybody else from the public who'd like to speak? Going once. Okay, it's 8:20. Oh, as soon as I look down, can you please state your name? your name clearly for the record. Thank you.
My
And
God.
address.
It's Marilyn, Marilyn, Nastari, Nastari. You're welcome. First of all, this does not,
Speak into
yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm the one that's complaining about you people not using the microphone. I'm sorry. These apartments do not go in our neighborhood. We are all single families. And this is gonna be a mess. It's really going to be a mess. And I beg of you, please deny this application. And like the other lady said, would you like it in your neighborhood? I don't want it in mine. And the people that live in that area, they're all second and third generation families that live in these houses. And it shouldn't happen. Let them build it somewhere else. Why does it have to be in North Providence? We're running out of space. Everything's gonna go up when he puts these things up here, if he puts them up. Please deny his application. I beg of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's 8:22. Public comment is now closed. The applicant come up and address any of those comments made by the public. You may do so now. If not, you can sit there. Oh, so McGreen, I'm sorry. Did
Someone else that wanted to?
ma'am, are you coming up to address the board?
But you
Sorry.
have to-
To reopen the public comment.
Yeah, we're gonna reopen it. The last, go ahead. That's it, and that's it. It's okay.
My name is Crystal Cornell. I live at 47 Beard Ave. Crystal Cornell. Corneau. I live at 47 Beard Ave. I love where I live because I lived in North Providence my whole life. I've been here 40 years and all my family is here. That's only why I've stayed here forever. But meaning to this building, I think it's not only, of course, I've heard, I'm sure you guys heard many a times, an eyesore, stuff like that. I know you guys did the traffic study, or they might have, but just recently on Memorial Day, my cousin parked on the street because it's in front of their house. An Amazon truck was there. A person came down the street, smashed all his side of his car. And I say that because they say there's enough room for more people to be on the street, more cars and more stuff to be in there. I don't think that there is. I also think that the adapt to reuse project is not really worth it because I don't think they're really gonna do that. I think, what if they bought it and then, yeah, I know I'm going on a tangent with this. But what if they bought it and then they're actually gonna knock it down and rebuild it into a completely different building? The building there, as we all know, everybody lives in the neighborhood, it's literally falling apart. And I've known the people that own it, stuff like that. They're wonderful people. I'd rather have an eyesore of the building than a project of all these people coming in. And then, it changes the neighborhood. As it is, I'm sure over the years, every neighborhood changes, but at the same token, we're trying to think of all the traffic portion of it coming in, as well as how everybody's gonna fit in through there. I know I park in front of my house on our street itself. I could tell you just from neighbors that are in our neighborhood, ambulance try to get down the street. They will literally knock on our door, say, hey, can we move your car? Stuff like that. There's just not enough room and there's not enough space for all this. And I know he says, and I'm sure it's repetitive of a lot of things I'm saying, but I know he also said they're 1-bedroom units. If you have 67 spots, how are you gonna have, you can't tell me there's nobody that's not gonna have friends over? On our street alone, everybody has parties every single week and people are parking in front of our house and neighbors' houses. You try to get down that street, if any of you's been down there, it's literally, it's like a raceway. People are swerving all around other cars to get there. That's all I'm saying in that aspect of it. But We did just go through that with my cousin's car. We're still trying to battle it through because you can't even get down our street. I know you have, so like I said, I was not trying to take all of your time, but I personally would not want to see this. And I know something has to go there. I'm not blind to that. I understand that maybe on a smaller scale, something of that nature. I was hoping anything, but this many units and stuff like that. I get it. It's his money. It is his purpose of his building. But I think at the same time, he should take into consideration of everybody that's here. We come every single week because we don't obviously want that there or something that makes sense. Anybody can read from a piece of paper. Anybody can keep coming every single time. But if you keep coming and then you don't have all the stuff that's presented all the time, how can anybody trust you and say, hey, I came up with all this XYZ and I'm ready to show you that I'm really ready to do this. You know? I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for coming up.
No problem.
Good evening, Chuck Pollock, Town Council, District 2. I just want to reiterate what our attorney stated. Last month, this was continued for the plan that you had last month. And tonight, a different plan is brought in and kind of asking you guys, my opinion, to vet issues out. That's what it seems like to me. Great questions by all of you, especially you, Mr. Regent. The plan that was brought last month, the plan that was being discussed last month, up until tonight, with this concept being different, that's what should be voted on tonight. That's what should be denied. They want to continue forward with this plan or any other plan, that should be addressed after tonight. But you guys have a responsibility. You continued the plan that we've been talking about last month to this month. That's the plan that should be denied. Not continue with a new plan. You should be denying that plan that was in front of you last month, and it's been discussed.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, 8:28, the public comment is now closed. The applicant would like to come up and address the board one more time.
Just briefly to respond to some of the assertions made by the attorney representing the town council, Tony Despair. As you know, but I'll say it for the benefit of the public, is that until master plan, until it's closed, we have the right to submit additional information, and we often do. As you know, my client's been here before this board on several occasions, and we often, I can name a half dozen projects that we've had 6 meetings at master plan approval, where we come back, we hear what the board has to say, and we come back. I'd like Tony to point out the statute that states that we can't modify plans and we have to start from square one. That is just not the case. That's not how master plan works. If he has a statute he'd like to refer to, I'd be more than happy to look at it, but there is no statute that states that we can't modify plans during master plan review process, number one. Just like before, we pointed out that we require the eligibility letter from Rhode Island Housing, not true. So in this instance, I'd like to have him point out the statute that states that we are not allowed to modify plans during master plan process. Show me the statute that prevents me from doing that. Thank you.
Mr. McGreen, are you asking for a response right now? Or?
If Tony'd like to come up and point to the statute that he made the suggestion that that this town council should deny the meeting, we should start over again because you should not be considering a modified plan. And I don't know anywhere in that master plan statute that prevents us from modifying plans as we get feedback from the town, or if we decide to make changes while the meeting has not been closed. It's been continued to next week. It's not closed for additional information. So we can bring additional, and we are bringing additional information. You asked us for a narrative, and we're doing that. You asked us for several items. If we bring in a modified plan which I think we might do to show a relocation of a garbage, we can do that. There's nothing in the ordinance that prevents us from doing that. And if the attorney for the town council wants to make that assertion, then he should point out to this, board where he's getting his, facts from.
Okay. He will do so to this board at the board's request. Go ahead.
452339. This plan that you have before you?
Excuse me, you said, what were those numbers? What are you citing?
I'm sorry, section 452339.
Of what?
Of the Rhode Island general laws.
Okay.
And that's for master plan. I'd like to know if the plan before you was certified as complete.
Oh, that would be for
This
the
is a-
plan
it's a
that
new
they're
plan.
responsive.
It was, yeah. It was initially issued a letter of incompleteness in January.
This plan,
The original application, which is this application, for 48 units, hasn't changed. It's still 48 units in the same building, on the same location, same parking,
2
same site
floors,
plan.
single family. It's a different plan, just a different plan. And that's what I'm saying here. See, I don't think you can substitute in plans. This to me isn't a modification. It's a new plan. And you know what? It isn't even the same footprint that you had before. That's all I'm saying. I don't think this was certified as complete. The plan that was certified as complete has been changed so much so it's unrecognizable. That's what I'm saying here. And that to me indicates that there's a problem with this project. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for referencing the section. And, I think the board has purview on, determining whether or not the applicant has made, significant changes, to deem it major enough for the applicant to resubmit. Me as chair, I don't believe that the applicant has made significant enough changes for a resubmission. The applicant is still requesting adaptive reuse of 2 existing structures for 48 units. The applicant has made modifications based on previous comments by the board. And I thank the applicant for doing so. Me as chair, I personally don't believe that this submission that we have tonight required a total resubmission. So I'll open it up for discussion for the board. We have been presented information tonight that we previously haven't been presented. And we obviously have heard from the applicant and abutters and the citizens of North Providence. Given light of the information that we took in tonight, I think that we're at a fork in the road, and we can determine one of 2 things. We can collectively agree or vote on whether or not this application should be continued, or if anybody at this present time has enough information, findings of fact to make a determination or a motion to put on the table to make a decision.
So are you looking for a motion or you just general conversation?
We can general conversation first.
I think we should table it, continue the public hearing, and wait for that additional information to come in, Mr. Chairman.
Lou, I'm just gonna poll the board.
I agree with that.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I think having, excuse me, having the information that we requested would be important. So I agree with Gary.
I think it should be continued.
All right, so polling the board, the applicant, you previously stated that you were okay with
Waiving the 120-day rule.
90.
90 days.
think.
Why do I say 120? Additional 30 days. Right. Whatever the numbers you need to make it work for you, so you're not violating the statute, we agree to that.
if the applicant would just, would consent to continuing the public hearing to the next
Yes.
meeting in July to allow for the applicant to get that additional information.
Yes, and without bumping into the 90-day limitation requiring to make a decision.
Yes.
So, procedural question. So should the board at the July meeting close the public hearing? Then there's another clock that starts to run the decision and file that?
So, no, the board would have to make a decision, within the 90 days. So if the board closes the public hearing at the next meeting,
Yeah.
but then wants to further reserve for whatever reason to make their decision and findings of fact based on evidence presented by the applicant, the public hearing could either remain open for that one final time or be closed. The applicant can assent to an extension, and then you guys can make the decision at the
So
next
what's the
meeting
90 days out, Angela? That's what I'm missing. So if the board were to close.
to make a decision,
so
for the
what-
board to make a decision on their vote for the master plan.
So when we close the hearing, then we have another 90 days to render a decision? Is that what you're saying?
No, you would, the
Oh.
applicant would need to allow an extension again.
Oh, to render that decision?
Yes.
Okay. And is that extension, let's say in July, we close the hearing and we ask for an extension of time because we now have to digest that information, right? So, so we ask for continuation just to then into August to render the decision?
Right,
Okay.
I mean, technically, the applicant has already consented to an extension. I think it's more out of an abundance of caution that you continue to consent to an extension. You've already consented, and I think based on the way this is going procedurally, you understand that there's
Yeah,
further.
I think we've run out of the 90 days right now. I think we have. right?
Already,
We've run out of
yeah,
the 90
yes.
So we're continuing to the next meeting. And if at the next meeting, you're unable to make, you decide as a group that you're unable to make the decision, you're going to look to me and you're going to say, Ms. McGreen, would your client consent to an additional 30 days
Thank you.
beyond the
Okay,
90 days?
Okay.
and Yeah, that's,
Very good.
and if we said no, I mean,
So let's say you did.
I would get a feeling pretty quickly. I would get a
No,
feeling.
no. What I was gonna ask is this. So on the 30.
No, I'm not going to give you a time to make your
No,
decision.
I said that out loud to ask the chair a question. So on that 30 days, the next one, does Brent have to file the decision in that 30-day period, or it's just for us to run the decision within that 30-day period?
I think we're getting bogged down on the days. The board has 90 days to make a decision after the application has been presented. The applicant has already consented to an extension based on the board's desire to get additional information. So as long as the board makes a decision at some point, within a reasonable time, as long as the applicant continues to consent to an extension, there's no 30-day window or anything like that at this point. Does that help you? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's okay. I don't want to. That's fine.
Okay, so hold the board. Would somebody like to make a motion to continue the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion to continue is passed. I'm sorry. What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So before everybody
Hold
gets
on,
up,
folks, hold on.
So it'll be July 9th.
so the next hearing is scheduled for July 9th, Wednesday, July 9th. Yes, sir.
At 6 PM.
Thank you. Do we have any staff updates?
We are planning on getting the comprehensive plan before the town council in August, just so you know. So
Oh, that's great.
we got the state review.
People in the gallery, we're still conducting our meeting. If I can just kindly ask you to lower your voices or take the conversation outside. Thank you.
So the comprehensive plan, it was reviewed by the state. It was received back from us or by us, and we revised it according to their comments, and we resubmitted It was approved by the state, so now the town council is going to review this in August. They're unfortunately not having a July meeting, so at the next available meeting, we might have a new comprehensive plan.
Okay, Brent, would you mind sending out the comprehensive plan
The draft?
that is drafted, that includes the state's comments that has been given to the council? Can you circulate that to the planning board?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, what about minutes?
What about what?
Minutes from the last meeting?
Oh, they were issued earlier today. Everybody, we did not vote on them.
Okay.
We did not vote on them. But I would like to, hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved, sir.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Aye, aye,
Aye.
Aye.
nays? None. Motion passed, adjourned.
Good night. So am I missing something? It's in.
Yeah, no, I just like gave it the legal extension.
Right.
So we have a whether the decision of Brett has to report the decision or we render the decision. That's it. And then we'll set files up for that.
To render.
So when-
To render.
Yeah, we- that's
Okay,
all right.
I wasn't sure that.
Yeah,
they
it was,
meant-
yeah.
My apologies.
No, you're fine. Again, thank you very much.
Nice seeing you. Thank you, you too.
Hopefully the weather will be nice.
I'll take it. That's the comfy chair.
Especially if we got the stuff.
Now it's starting to, be.